Chapter 1956. Is this the talent of the special life form Wu Nightmare? Lin Feng sighed. Be it Wu Nightmare or Wu Nightmare, these special life forms were indeed heaven-defying and envied by others. However, special life forms were special life forms in the end. There were pros and cons. The heavens were very fair. They gave them heaven-defying talents, but they also took away a lot of them. Just the fact that they couldn't reproduce meant that it was difficult for special life forms to rise. The truly powerful ones in Origin Awakened Continent were the 5 races and 8 factions, not the special life forms. Hiss, the pure dark devil energy, the essence of the Nightmare Devil, entered his body along with the Nightmare Devil blood crystal, silently changing his body. It merged with his cells and condensed on his skin, causing the dark devil tattoos to constantly shine. That feeling was very strange. It was like drawing strokes after strokes on the mark of life, causing life to become more colorful. As one's bloodline improved, the divine patterns of light and the devil patterns of darkness became even more complex and mysterious. They contained the origin of the universe's laws. When one comprehended one of the laws to perfection, it would make the patterns even more intricate and complex. Every time his bloodline improved, the light demon runes and dark demon runes would undergo a fundamental transformation. Right now, the light demon runes were dozens of times more complex than the dark demon runes. The energy and aura it contained completely suppressed the dark demon runes. The dark demon runes' aura rapidly expanded and rose. It wasn't that the dark demon runes had surpassed the light demon runes, but that they were shining brightly. It was like a contestant performing on stage. Although she might not be stronger than the contestants below the stage, she was the center of attention. It's worth it. Lin Feng fully immersed himself in this strange feeling. Especially the in-depth analysis of the dark demon Tao. He perfectly received the origin laws. It was even more thorough and direct than his own comprehension. The same perfection had different levels. It was like an exam. If you did some questions many times, you would naturally know how to do them. However, some questions were completely understood and were already familiar with them. Lin Feng's comprehension of the light demon Tao was similar to the first one. The dark demon Tao he was comprehending now was the second one. He analyzed every bit of the dark demon Tao and analyzed its essence. Perhaps they were both at the perfection realm and the power was the same, but Lin Feng knew that there was definitely a difference. It could be the subsequent cultivation, the future evolution, the cultivation of secret techniques, the fusion of the Tao, and so on. Different, there must be something different. In calming Heart Lake, I can actually continue cultivating the Tao of light speed. Lin Feng originally thought that his Tao of light speed had reached perfection and that he had completely comprehended it, but from the looks of it, there was still a long way to go. He only understood a realm called Great Perfection, which was similar to the fusion of the entire sea of laws. However, how many water droplets, how many structures, and how many variations were there in the sea of laws? It was too huge. The entire Tao of laws was like a giant chessboard. There were billions of chess pieces on the chessboard, forming a complex and ever-changing game. Cultivating the Tao of laws from zero to perfection was like comprehending the Tao of laws step by step. The Great Perfection stage did not mean that he had completely mastered it, but that he had completely grasped the rules or laws of the entire sea of laws. Knowing how to play the game, knowing the structure of the whole game, and being able to freely assemble the pieces, unleash the power of the chessboard, and interpret the charm of the game. Everyone understood. Lin Feng heaved a sigh of relief. It was as if he had opened a new world, and he was filled with many emotions. He knew that he had truly come into contact with the mysteries of the Tao of laws. He had seen the key to surpassing the master of the Black region. His future path of improvement was much stronger and more complicated than he had imagined. The universe was vast, and its power was immense and endless. The vast majority of experts were frogs in a well. One step at a time. First, fully comprehend the Tao of Dark Demon and reach the Great Perfection stage. In addition, I can truly comprehend the foundation of a Tao of laws and analyze it from its source. Lin Feng completely calmed down. At first, he thought that the most precious thing about the Nightmare Blood Crystal was that it could raise the Tao of Dark Demon to great perfection and step into the 9-star realm. Later, he discovered that the most precious thing about the Nightmare Blood Crystal was that it could raise the bloodline. But now, he discovered that the most precious thing about the Nightmare Blood Crystal was that it could perfectly interpret every drop of the Tao of Dark Demon. The more solid his foundation was, the smoother his future development would be. Boundless. Lin Feng was completely immersed in comprehending the Tao of Dark Demon. Every drop of the Tao of Laws was reflected in the Tao of Dark Demon, causing his understanding of the Tao of Dark Demon to become deeper and deeper. In fact, 2 months ago, Lin Feng had already felt that his Tao of Dark Demon could reach the Great Perfection stage. With the comprehension of the Tao of Light and the experience of the wall breaking point, Lin Feng was very sure. As long as he was willing, he could break through that thin layer, cross the bottleneck, and step into the Great Perfection stage of Dark Demon. But it was far from enough. Lin Feng still wanted to comprehend more and comprehend all the information about Dark Demon. This was a rare opportunity because he didn't know what would happen after his Tao of Dark Demon reached the Great Perfection stage. Would he be unable to immerse himself in the Dark Demon Blood Sea and be unable to comprehend anymore? He wasn't willing to gamble. Reaching the Great Perfection stage a bit later wouldn't affect him much. After comprehending for 2 months and 10 days, zzz, a powerful aura spread throughout his body. It was like a singularity that had reached the limit of saturation, unable to contain any more energy. However, the essence of the Nightmare Blood Crystal continued to pour in. It continued to strengthen his bloodline and improve the Dark Demon pattern. At this moment, the Dark Demon pattern was like a blooming flower. Above every Dark Demon pattern, a flower bloomed on a stalk. It was extremely beautiful and bloomed perfectly. Naturally, this wasn't a sign of the Tao of Dark Demon reaching the Great Perfection stage. A Great Perfection stage of Law Tao wouldn't be able to cause such a huge change. Especially the change in the aura energy. Previously, Lin Feng didn't control it and gave others the feeling that it was glowing. But now, it was neutralized by a different aura. It was very strange. It's here. Lin Feng smiled with satisfaction. The reason why he bought the Nightmare Blood Crystal that day was because of its unique bloodline enhancement characteristic. Every treasure that enhanced bloodline was very precious. Even if the Nightmare Blood Crystal had huge side effects, it was still sold for an extremely high price. It was worth it. The enhancement of bloodline was fundamental. It was much more important than law comprehension. As long as one had enough comprehension ability, one could completely accumulate law comprehension with time. However, bloodline couldn't. Many experts were stuck at that level because of their bloodline when they cultivated to the limit, unable to improve further. Hua! 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 Streaks of black crystal light shone in the Dark Demon pattern. After absorbing the bloodline to the limit, the essence of the bloodline underwent a fundamental change. The hidden bloodline was stimulated. It was like a genetic change. A wonderful feeling spread throughout the heart. The essence of the power of darkness crashed down like a pillar of light. Endless darkness descended. Ha! Lin Feng's eyes passed through a blood-red color. He still maintained his original state, but his aura energy suddenly erupted. Endless darkness shrouded, turning the entire area into hell. Dark Demon Pattern, 3rd Stage. Chapter 1957. The perfect and flawless dark demonic pattern exuded surging flames and power. After the transformation, it was only a little bit away from the light divine pattern. After all, the light divine pattern had been bestowed by the origin laws because the light speed Tao had reached perfection. However, the two were already on the same level. The dark demonic pattern's secret patterns were complex and contained extreme mysteries. It was not inferior to the light divine pattern at all. Two separate and opposite laws converged into the same bloodline, making Lin Feng look exceptionally strange. However, the black vortex balanced the two types of energy, forming a perfect cycle. Crack! Crack! Lin Feng's bones, cells, meridians, skin changed one after another. This was a leap in the level of life, a transformation of genes. The bloodline seed hidden in the depths of his body had completely sprouted. A tall, black-haired figure flashed in his mind. It's here. Lin Feng was not unfamiliar. Every time his bloodline evolved and improved, he would appear. It was like an ancient imprint imprinted in the depths of his soul. It stood tall and upright, supporting the heavens and the earth. The golden armor that was like a divine soldier shone brightly. This time, he appeared more clearly than the previous time. He was taller and more powerful. It was as if he could reach out and touch him. The terrifying aura caused heaven and earth to tremble. However, Lin Feng felt a gentle breeze on his face. He did not feel any pressure at all. It was as if this was a power that belonged to him. So powerful! Lin Feng sighed. Just what kind of existence was this to possess such terrifying power? Even the laws of the world were trembling before it. The light divine pattern was connected to the dark demonic pattern, forming a perfect resonance. Looking at it from a close distance, it felt different. The blood-red saber in the black-haired giant's hand was eye-catching. It was as if it was refined from the spine and flesh of a peerless ferocious beast. The last time he saw him, he passed the thousand obscuring heavenly saber to him. Now, he had only learned a little, but he was already invincible at the 8-star level. If he learned all of it, Lin Feng even felt that he would be invincible in the entire Origin Awakening continent. The saber technique was too terrifying. Suddenly, Lin Feng felt a sharp and kind gaze. He was startled. The black-haired giant stood there, holding the blood saber. It was as if he was looking at him through endless time and space. Their eyes met, and his heart beat rapidly. Impossible. Lin Feng was a little dazed. Even if the black-haired giant was his bloodline ancestor, there was no reason for him to still be alive. However, when their eyes met, it was as if he was looking at his own child. "I Wan Qian," a voice suddenly sounded in his mind. Lin Feng was extremely shocked. Traversing the myriad worlds of the universe, living a carefree life, using light and darkness as the source, transcending the great limit and creating a Tao that belongs to oneself. Light, Qian, Qian's Tao, but I Qian, Tao. Even if you exhaust your entire life, light will always be light and darkness will always be darkness. The original rules of the universe cannot be defied. With a long sigh, it was as if the heavens and earth had aged a little. The ancient voice of chaos seemed to freeze at that moment. Lin Feng could completely sense the black-haired giant's emotions, as well as the vicissitudes of life and helplessness. However, the path I took wasn't meaningless. Although the Tao of light and darkness isn't an ultimate Tao, it's enough to transcend one's limits and roam the universe freely. After my descendants transcend, they can use the Tao of light and darkness as a foundation to comprehend the Tao of life and death destruction or the Tao of Taiji. These two Taos are ultimate Taos. Don't follow in my footsteps and refuse to turn back. This is my life's work, the Wan Qian Tao. Cultivate this secret technique and fuse the Tao of light and darkness. The voice was vast and boundless, with a hint of lamentation. The vicissitudes of life contained helplessness and insight, as well as unyielding stubbornness. Lin Feng could almost see the stubbornness in the eyes of the black-haired giant. He believed that even if Wan Qian knew that this path wasn't an ultimate Tao, he would still walk it to the end. Refuse to turn back until he hit the wall? Other experts might turn back, but Ancestor Wan Qian definitely wouldn't. He would tear down the wall and continue walking. No matter how many times he hit the wall, He wouldn't take even half a step back. This was a feeling. However, he was very sure of it. Perhaps the same blood flows in our bodies. Lin Feng smiled. At this moment, the secret technique, Myriad Heaven Path, had already surged into his mind like a tidal wave, and endless information seemed to fill his mind to the brim. This was the comprehension of ancestor Wan Qian for billions of eras. It was even one of the top secret techniques in the universe. He had already comprehended the Tao of light and darkness to the extreme. Light and darkness are polar opposites. It's already difficult to fuse them, and it's even harder to unleash their power. If one wants to cultivate the Tao of fusion to the extreme, it's even more whimsical. However, it was precisely because of this that this was an unknown and powerful path. There was nothing in the universe that was impossible. After an unknown period of time, the endless information was completely imprinted in his mind. The huge comprehension made Lin Feng gasp in amazement. The mystery of the Tao of light and darkness was like a huge painting that was completely laid out in front of him. That was a complete description of the Taos of the two source laws. It was too massive, even though he couldn't understand the mysteries behind it at his level. However, this didn't stop him from knowing how powerful the Wan Qian Tao was. It wasn't an offensive secret technique, but purely a cultivation secret technique. However, it was already extremely precious. This was because the Wan Qian Tao cultivated the Tao of light and darkness. It was exactly the same as what he had chosen. When one cultivated it to the extreme, they would be able to surpass their limits and become the ruler of the universe. However, the cultivation requirements were extremely high. To cultivate the first scroll, the 6 Taos of light and the 6 Taos of darkness must all be at great perfection. Lin Feng smiled bitterly. Just this requirement alone was something that most cultivators couldn't hope to achieve. However, it wasn't really that difficult for him, who possessed ancestor Wan Qian's bloodline. To cultivate the second scroll, the 12 Taos must reach 100,000 origin realm. To cultivate the third scroll, Lin Feng sighed. After that, he couldn't see it clearly. Even if he could see it clearly, he wouldn't be able to understand it. It was like an illiterate person reading a heavenly book. To him, the Wan Qian Tao was extraordinarily difficult. He didn't even have the right to cultivate the first scroll. However, this path was definitely terrifyingly powerful. To surpass the limit. Although I don't know what the limit is, Ancestor Wan Qian's knowledge is far greater than mine. Although the Tao of light and darkness isn't an ultimate Tao, it's already at the peak below the ultimate Tao. I'm still far from surpassing the limit. There's no need to think about what I cultivate in the future so early. Right now, I might as well follow what Ancestor Wan Qian said and use the Tao of light and darkness as a foundation to reach the limit first. I have Ancestor Wan Qian's bloodline and the secret technique, the Wan Qian Tao. There shouldn't be a problem. Lin Feng was overjoyed. He had never thought that the breakthrough of his bloodline would bring such a pleasant surprise. It was completely unexpected. Moreover, there was more than one pleasant surprise. Chapter 1958. Body, Second Transformation. When he received the information from the Myriad Heaven Path, that was as vast as the ocean, Lin Feng's body had already undergone a tremendous change. The increase in his bloodline caused his life level, which was already at the critical point, to undergo a unique transformation. Originally, he only needed to comprehend one more origin source law to break through the limit. But now, the sublimation of his bloodline was enough. Even if he hadn't comprehended any origin source law, Lin Feng had absolute confidence that with the perfect sublimation of his bloodline, the accumulation of his life level was enough. Even if his bloodline wasn't number 1 in the entire Origin Awakened continent, it was at least top 3. Stronger than special life forms. My body feels very hungry. Lin Feng took out the fruits of heaven and earth and ate them one by one. The fruits of heaven and earth that he had purchased at the Heavenly Tea Pavilion had already been saturated, allowing his body to reach the limit of 8 stars. In this way, the enhancement of his body's transformation could be maximized. Now that he had just stepped into 9 stars, his body had already reached an unimaginable level, strengthened by dozens of times. At the limit of 8 stars, my body's strength was comparable to a 9-star powerhouse. Now, I'm afraid it can be compared to a special life form like Ming Ho, who was born with a strong body. Lin Feng smiled. Ming Ho's body was like a natural treasure, incomparably powerful. It was the same for him now. Lin Feng could feel that his bones, cells, and skin had become terrifyingly tough. Under the condensation of the light god pattern and the dark god pattern, they had formed a perfect body. Even if he stood here, an ordinary 8-star powerhouse would find it difficult to hurt him. Moreover, because his body had been strengthened to the limit before the breakthrough, coupled with the blessing of his bloodline, the limit of his 9-star body was much higher than that of ordinary 9-star powerhouses. It was like a tougher bag, able to bear more weight. His life level had completely sublimated. His every move already had a strong pressure, especially Lin Feng's soul was strong, so the pressure was even stronger. Coupled with his astonishing physical defense, no one below 9 stars was a threat. He was already standing at the top of Origin Awakened Continent. Or rather, he had stepped into the limit of the Black Region Master, where the cage was. The next step was to break the cage, surpass the Black Region Master, and truly dominate the universe. That would be a whole new level. When one reached that level, not only would he be stronger, but he would also have a broader vision. Moreover, he would be able to step into the universe macro world. He believed that when he faced the decline of the Milky Way super black hole and the destruction of the Milky Way galaxy, he would be able to solve the problem. I have to be quick. I don't have much time left. Although Lin Feng had reached 9 stars, he still didn't dare to stop. The limit of 10,000 eras pressed down upon him at all times. Now, a third of it had already passed, and he had less and less time left. However, he could not rush to increase his strength. He could only do his best. His life level had undergone a great leap. Coupled with the transformation of his bloodline, Lin Feng's abilities had undergone a complete transformation. Just the absorption of nightmare blood crystals alone was more than 10 times faster than before. A large amount of information was received at an extremely fast speed. That was the complete source of the Dark Devil Law. Bit by bit, it gathered in his heart, forming an entire blood-colored sea. As he comprehended the entire blood sea, the nightmare blood crystal's energy slowly dimmed. Break. Lin Feng's current cultivation level was much higher than that of the Absolute Circle. The point of breaking the wall was no longer an obstacle to him. With a thought, he could directly break it. The dark demonic runes that had just undergone a transformation began to change slowly. Some strange branches and flowers were added, making the mysterious runes even more gorgeous and mysterious. Dark Devil Law, Absolute Circle. So, after Absolute Circle, there are 100,000 source points. Lin Feng could clearly feel that the light speed Tao could only see the enormous law ocean. If he shrunk it and looked at it, the Absolute Circle was just a dot, the top of the cone. Grasping it was indeed equivalent to grasping the entire law Tao. One could clearly comprehend it and easily use any secret technique. At the bottom of the cone were 100,000 source points. They converged into a circle connected to each other. Each source point was connected to the other 99999 source points, and there were invisible law lines connecting them. Countless source points, countless source lines, formed an incomparably complex network, dissecting the foundation of the law origin. Further down, there were billions of even smaller specks of light, but Lin Feng was unable to see them at all. He could only vaguely sense them. Although his mastery of the Dark Devil Law was already very high, surpassing Absolute Circle, he still had not reached 100,000 source points, which was the requirement for the second volume of the Myriad Heaven Path. There should be two major steps to reaching 100,000 source points. The first step is to dissect the 100,000 source points of the Law Tao. The second step is to connect the 100,000 source points to form the bottom of the cone. It was clear whether it was powerful or not. At Absolute Circle, the power of the origin laws was only the topmost point. No matter how refined it was, no matter how powerful a secret technique was created, it would only increase the power of that point. However, 100,000 origin realm experts formed an entire all of laws. Just the quantity alone made the difference between heaven and earth. However, before reaching 100,000 source points, it was no different from Absolute Circle. Even if the 100,000 source points at the bottom of the cone were completely dissected, it would only make it easier to create secret techniques and comprehend them better. However, the power would be the same as at Absolute Circle because it would not be able to form a cone. Only by connecting the 100,000 source points and forming a true whole could one reach 100,000 source points. A casual strike would be able to crush someone at Absolute Circle. It was just too difficult. Reaching Absolute Circle was already very difficult. Reaching 100,000 source points was even more difficult. This had already surpassed the level of the Master of the Black Region. The first volume of the Myriad Heaven Path requires everyone to reach Absolute Circle, and the second volume requires everyone to reach 100,000 source points. Lin Feng sighed. Ancestor Wan Gon's cultivation was just too high. Although the legacy he left behind was powerful, it was not easy to cultivate it. However, if I can successfully cultivate it, its power will be even more shocking. Every effort was equal to a reward. Lin Feng knew very well that the Myriad Heaven Path created by Ancestor Wan Gon was a supreme secret technique that could allow one to surpass the limits of the universe. The future would be bright with this legacy. It's about time. Let's return to the clan. Lin Feng wrapped up in satisfaction. Even though the Black Vortex was still unable to break through to the fourth stage, he no longer cared about it. The reason why he wanted to break through the Black Vortex was because he was afraid he would not be able to balance the light and darkness bloodlines and achieve fusion. The stronger the Black Vortex, the easier it would be to control the light and darkness bloodlines, and the more powerful they would be. But now? The first volume of the Myriad Heaven Path contains the basic method of fusing light and darkness. Lin Feng smiled and left the spatial secret realm. Chapter 1959. Lin Feng returned to the Tranquil Heart Realm. The peaceful Tranquil Heart Realm didn't have an amazing density of spirit energy or rich space energy like the Destiny Realm. However, it had an unparalleled Tranquil Heart Lake that nurtured 108 Tranquil Heart Pond. Stepping onto this land, Lin Feng felt a sense of tranquility. With his current strength, the density of spirit energy wasn't that important anymore. It had long surpassed the accumulation of quantity. What he needed to improve now was his comprehension and realm, as well as the transformation of his life level. After all, Lin Feng's sensing ability and comprehension were already very strong. Especially after the Dark Mageweth reached the third stage, his bloodline merged into one. Not only did his dark talent improve, but his light and dark talents also reached an extremely high level. It was flawless. Therefore, he touched the mark of Ancestor Wan Qian in his bloodline. Lord Lin, Sr. In the Tranquil Heart Realm, some ordinary clansmen could be seen from time to time. They all bowed respectfully to Lin Feng. 8-star strength and the owner of number 20 Tranquil Heart Pond were enough to prove Lin Feng's strength. Even among the 8-star clansmen, Lin Feng was an upper-level powerhouse. The battle with Tan Xiaoxiao had already made Lin Feng famous. Ordinary clansmen didn't dare to be disrespectful at all. With Lin Feng's strength, he could actually take on some positions in the clan. However, he had just joined the clan and was unfamiliar with many aspects. Therefore, Shi Dingshan didn't make any arrangements. Moreover, in Dong Wang and Shi Dingshan's opinion, the most suitable thing for Lin Feng now was to let him cultivate alone. This was because Lin Feng had always done this. What the human race of the Milky Way needed more were top powerhouses. As for the clan's affairs, they were secondary. Should I go to the contribution tower first or the clan leader's place? Lin Feng looked calm and completely concealed his aura. His soul was already extremely strong. Only a few 9-star powerhouses could see through him. Now, if Lin Feng deliberately concealed his aura, even a few 9-star powerhouses wouldn't be able to see through him. At most, they could vaguely make a judgment based on their senses. Hide his strength? Lin Feng didn't think about it. There was nothing wrong with becoming a 9-star expert, and there was no need to hold back. According to what Brother Shi said, the stronger one is, the higher one's position in the clan will be, and the more power one will enjoy. Of course, the responsibility will also be heavier. Lin Feng smiled. He didn't care about the responsibility on his shoulders, because that was what he had always done. Let's go to the Patriarch's place first. It's closer. Lin Feng went in the direction of Ningxin Lake, which was also where the number 1 Ningxin pool was located. It was where the Patriarch of Dongwang Palace cultivated. The clan leader once mentioned that if I can break through and become a 9-star expert, the clan will give me more resources and treasures. I don't need anything else. I just need a larger quota for Calming Heart Lake. Lin Feng didn't have much need for treasures at the moment. Now that he had the wings of Brahma's genial nature, he still needed to study and cultivate it. As for the other outstanding true treasures, he still had the Moyu boat and the Moyu boat, which were more than enough for him to use. Even the profound light shuttle and the skeleton demon could unleash power that was infinitely close to that of an outstanding true treasure. This was because the two were perfectly compatible. The brilliant light shuttle was the Tao of light speed, while the skeleton demon was the Tao of dark devil. At the moment, these two Tao of law had already reached the great perfection. One is the quota for Calming Heart Lake, and the other is the schedule for the new round of Calming Heart Lake next year. I'll try to arrange it as early as possible. Lin Feng knew that the turbulent void could open at any time, and each round of quota for Calming Heart Lake had a period of 10 years. There was a big difference between arranging it early and arranging it late, especially at this critical moment. I was only an 8-star expert before, so I was not as important as a 9-star expert. But now it's different. Lin Feng was very confident that he could get what he wanted from Dong Huang. Although he didn't have much seniority, Dong Huang was not the kind of person who looked at seniority. He would see what decision was more beneficial to the clan. Ningxin Square. This was a place for the clansmen to rest and relax. There were all kinds of entertainment facilities, good wine and food, and even gatherings and celebrations. The number of clansmen gathered here was the largest. After all, it was impossible to just cultivate for a long time. That would be too boring. Only a few cultivation maniacs would do that. Most people liked to strike a balance between work and rest. When it was time to cultivate, they would cultivate, and when it was time to enjoy, they would enjoy. Xiao, cheer up. Isn't it just a drop in the ranking? There's no need to drown your sorrows in alcohol. In an open-air restaurant, Qi Hong was accompanying Tan Xiao and consoling him from time to time. They were both 8-star experts from the same ancestral bloodline, and their relationship was quite good. Moreover, the owner of this open-air restaurant was King Tsangye. As King Tsangye's disciple, Qi Hong was nominally the owner of this open-air restaurant. He also had a share of the restaurant's profit. Brother Hong, you don't understand. Tan Xiao let out a long sigh and closed his eyes helplessly. If you don't say it, of course I don't understand. It's just losing a battle. What's the big deal? Qi Hong said, didn't you defeat Li Zhe and get the number 25 Calming Heart Lake? Tan Xiao shook his head and said, the rumors outside are very unpleasant. They say that I, Tan Xiaoxiao, bully the weak and fear the strong. They say that I only know how to bully clansmen from the same bloodline. Qi Hong revealed a displeased expression and said, "What are these people talking about? The ranking of the Calming Heart Lake is based on strength. That Lin Feng is very strong, and he deserves to get the number 20 Calming Heart Lake." That day, Tan Xiaoxiao had given up without a fight, which caused a lot of criticism. The experts who owned the Calming Heart Lake naturally knew that Tan Xiaoxiao had given up strategically. After all, he only had one chance after being defeated, and that was to challenge the clansman at the bottom. If he failed, he would have to start from scratch again. How could he take the risk? However, the ordinary clansmen didn't understand. In their eyes, Tan Xiaoxiao was a coward. After losing to Lin Feng once, he lost so much that he didn't even have the guts to fight. Sigh, how could I not want to fight with Lin Feng again? Tan Xiaoxiao sighed and said, however, his fighting style just happens to restrain me. Even if I were to fight him 100 times, or even 1,000 times, the result wouldn't change. Qi Hong said, his attacking ability is like a kaleidoscope, and it's impossible to guard against it. Moreover, he has an outstanding treasure to defend against you. After that battle, Qi Hong also knew about that battle. He was the owner of the number 7 Calming Heart Lake and the number 1 expert under the 9-star experts in the Milky Way. Moreover, he was the disciple of the Horizon King. His insight was very high, and he could see the whole picture with just one glance. That's right. Tan Xiaoxiao sighed. Although his control and domain ability are slightly weaker, he is too strong in other aspects. I have no chance of winning against him if he uses force to break through. My attacking power is too weak. Qi Hong patted Tan Xiaoxiao's shoulder and said, make use of the time to increase your attacking power. That Lin Feng isn't really invincible. Teacher estimates that his strength is at most at the level of the number 15 Calming Heart Lake. You still have a chance. Tan Xiaoxiao laughed bitterly and picked up his wine cup and drank it in one gulp. How could it be so easy? Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly saw Qi Hong turn his head and look into the distance. Tan Xiaoxiao was slightly surprised and followed Qi Hong's line of sight. Suddenly, his eyes lit up. It was a familiar figure who was walking over. Lin Feng! Tan Xiaoxiao exclaimed. Chapter 1960. Enemies were bound to meet. Tan Xiaoxiao didn't expect to bump into Lin Feng here. It was fate. It's a pity that I can't challenge in the future. Otherwise, I would still be qualified to challenge for the next 10 years. I can give it a try. Qi Hong's eyes were like torches, with traces of battle intent. As the strongest 8-star expert of the ancestors' bloodline, he naturally had to defend the glory of the ancestors' bloodline. He had already been suppressed by the Milky Way's bloodline at the 9-star level. If he still lost to the 8-star level, it wouldn't make sense. After all, the number of clansmen of the ancestors' bloodline far exceeded that of the Milky Way's bloodline. Why don't we challenge him in the arena and see if he will accept? Tan Xiaoxiao wanted to vent his anger. It will be difficult. Qi Hong said, back then, when I brushed past him at the Tranquil Heart Lake, I provoked him, but he didn't move. Tan Xiaoxiao mumbled, he is rather cunning. Qi Hong's expression turned serious, and the corners of his lips curled up coldly. This is the Tranquil Heart Plaza, and there are many clansmen here. Wait for me. I will challenge him again. It will be good if he accepts. If he doesn't, we can at least suppress his arrogance. Tan Xiaoxiao was delighted to hear this. Then I will have to trouble Brother Hong. Qi Hong replied and his figure disappeared. Walking in the Tranquil Heart Plaza, Lin Feng looked around curiously. With his current soul spirit level, he didn't need to release it intentionally to sense everything around him. He had already noticed Qi Hong and Tan Xiaoxiao, as well as the other 2 8-star experts and 53 7-star experts in the Tranquil Heart Plaza. Lin Feng noticed Qi Hong's strange movements. Qi Hong appeared in front of him as though he had teleported. They had met once at the Tranquil Heart Lake, but it was their first time meeting each other. Chi Hong was tall and had a tyrannical aura. He was 3 meters tall and had a surging aura. It was obvious that he was the type that specialized in close combat. Lin Feng. Chi Hong's voice was loud and clear, as though he wanted to attract all the clansmen in the surroundings. I heard that you challenged the clansmen of my ancestors' bloodline and won every battle. Do you dare to have a duel with me? A big hat was placed on Jiang Yi. Lin Feng couldn't help but laugh. Since when had he challenged the people of his ancestors' bloodline and won every battle? But needless to say, Chi Hong's provocation was extremely effective. Numerous clansmen instantly gathered in the surroundings and whispered in discussion, and their gazes even carried a trace of anger and indignation. No one would feel comfortable when their bloodline was provoked. I'm not interested. Lin Feng didn't even give it a second thought before rejecting Chi Hong. He didn't have the time to waste here with Chi Hong. Moreover, winning against Chi Hong wouldn't bring him any benefits and would instead deepen the misunderstanding. There were some things that one did not need to pay attention to. Time would prove everything. At that time, when the news of him becoming a 9-star expert was announced by the Patriarch, all doubts would vanish. He was strong and had great talent and potential. So what if he was arrogant and didn't put the ancestors' bloodline in his eyes? Strength was the deciding factor. Although Chi Hong already knew the outcome, he was still unable to restrain his anger. Lin Feng's rejection didn't have the slightest bit of sincerity, and it was as if he didn't know him at all. In any case, he, Chi Hong, was the strongest person below the 9-star experts in the Milky Way's human clan. In the entire clan, apart from the 6 9-star experts, everyone had to be respectful when they saw him. Lin Feng, you are too cunning. Not far away, Tan Xiaoxiao sneered and said, Why didn't you say you weren't interested when you challenged Gong Mo and me back then? I think you are just bullying the weak and fearing the strong. I'm not as strong as Brother Hong, so I backed off. Lin Feng smiled. He didn't explain and was about to leave. You. Tan Xiaoxiao was completely looked down upon, and he was furious. If you are so capable, let's fight again. Is this all the Milky Way's bloodline is capable of? Xiao. Chi Hong frowned and shouted. Lin Feng was also somewhat displeased and stopped in his track. I am me, and the Milky Way's bloodline is the Milky Way's bloodline. Don't get involved. If you want to fight again, I will accompany you to the end. Tan Xiaoxiao's face flushed red, and he was instantly at a loss for words. He naturally didn't want to compete with Lin Feng again. It was just that he had blurted out earlier. Xiaoxiao didn't mean that. Chi Hong continued the conversation and said, He said that on behalf of me. Lin Feng, we can have a friendly spar. I will let you have 3 moves. Let me have 3 moves? Lin Feng didn't know whether to laugh or cry. Yes. When Chi Hong saw that Lin Feng seemed to be tempted, he hastily said, Let's have a showdown on the arena. I believe that everyone is like me and wants to see the true strength of the newcomer that the clan leader thinks highly of. Now? Lin Feng nodded. Chi Hong nodded repeatedly. Sure, no problem. I will keep my word. I will let you have 3 moves and won't attack. Lin Feng smiled. Since it is a spar, how can I let you have your way? It will be a fair fight. However, I am about to enter the Tranquil Heart Lake to comprehend. It won't be good if I get injured because of this. Chi Hong was stunned. He naturally had to win the fight, but he couldn't let Lin Feng get injured? How could he do that? Lin Feng, your request is too much. Tan Xiaoxiao frowned. No, what I mean is that if I get injured because of this, it will be a waste of my quota to enter the Tranquil Heart Lake. Lin Feng muttered to himself and said, How about this? I still have 40 days of quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake. If I lose in the spar, I will give it all to Brother Chi Hong unconditionally. Brother Chi Hong, what do you think? Chi Hong was stunned. Tan Xiaoxiao was stunned. The surrounding clansmen were also stunned. So good? A pie in the sky? This newbie Lin Feng couldn't be stupid, right? 40 days of quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake. The highest quota that an 8-star expert could get every 10 years was only 35 days. Pooh-pooh. Pooh-pooh. Qi Hong's heartbeat was extremely fast, and his fists had already unconsciously clenched tightly. He naturally understood what Lin Feng meant, even though he originally only wanted to vent his anger for his ancestors' bloodline. Even though he wanted to vent his anger on behalf of his clan, this was undoubtedly a great opportunity for him. As long as he defeated Lin Feng, not only would his ancestors be able to hold their heads high, but he would also be able to get 40 days of quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake. That was a full 40 days. He only had 35 days of quota every 10 years, and he still had 60 days left from the rewards given to him by dozens of eras. If I have these 40 days, in addition to the 60 days that I originally had, I will have 130 days in the next 10 years. Qi Hong became more and more excited as he thought about it. If he could continuously comprehend the Tranquil Heart Lake for 120 days without stopping, it was very likely that he could break through the bottleneck and become a 9-star expert. A great opportunity. All right, I accept. Qi Hong's eyes shone brightly as he suppressed his excitement. If I lose in the spar, I will give you all of my quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake. His ranking at the Tranquil Heart Lake was higher than Lin Feng's. If Lin Feng could get 40 days, he couldn't do the same. Even if he won, he would be criticized by others. Qi Hong felt that this bet was already very fair with an extra 20 days. Anyway, it was impossible for him to lose. It didn't matter even if he had an extra 200 days, let alone 20 days. Qi Hong had 100% confidence in Lin Feng. A newcomer who overestimates himself. He thinks that he is a genius and doesn't care about others. Qi Hong sneered in his heart. Soon, I will let you know how big the gap between us is. Brother Qi Hong is indeed a straightforward person. Lin Feng smiled. Since that is the case, let's go. All right. Chapter 1961. The entire Ningxin realm was in an uproar. The news of Qi Hong challenging Lin Feng spread very quickly. After all, it had happened in the Ningxin Plaza, and everyone had witnessed it with their own eyes. Moreover, the wager involved the Ningxin Lake quota and was naturally a big deal. Every day of the Ningxin Lake quota was very precious. It was especially so for those below the 7-star level. They wouldn't be able to get any quota. Even for 8-star experts, they would only get about 10 days of quota every 10 years. It was extremely rare. Right now, the wager was 40 days and 60 days. This newcomer Lin Feng is really gutsy. He even dares to wager on the Ningxin Lake quota. Isn't that so? He merely won against Gong Ma and Tan Xiaoxiao, and he thinks that he is invincible. Qi Hong is the most outstanding among the 8-star experts in our ancestral lineage. The Patriarch and Deputy Patriarch both agreed that he is the one most likely to break through to the 9-star level. He can defeat that newcomer Lin Feng without breaking through. Lord Qi's strength is already comparable to a 9-star expert. This time, he has to win ruthlessly. He really thinks that there is no one in our ancestral lineage. This newcomer Lin Feng is really daring to find trouble for our Milky Way lineage. That's right. I came here 2 epochs earlier than him and am still not a match for Qi Hong. How can he possibly win when he just arrived? It doesn't matter if he loses, but he also lost the Ningxin Lake quota. Isn't this giving it away to his competitor? It will be even harder for our Milky Way lineage to surpass the ancestral lineage. Forget it. Newcomers are like this. Newborn calves aren't afraid of tigers. After all, he cultivated to the 8-star level in the outside world. It is normal for him to be arrogant. Losing and falling might not be a bad thing for him. There is no harm in making the ancestral lineage happy. After all, we will catch up sooner or later. There were endless discussions. Many figures emerged from various locations in the Ningxin realm and headed towards the Ningxin arena. A battle of this level, regardless of whether it was a topic of discussion or a spectator's view, was naturally not to be missed. One had to know that generally the top 10 of the Calming Heart Pond basically did not fight. Everyone was well aware of this, and rarely would their rankings change. Qi Hong hadn't challenged anyone for close to 100 years. Everyone knew that he was the strongest 8-star expert in the Milky Way's human race. But now someone finally dared to challenge him. Let's see what level Qi Hong's strength has reached. I wonder how much of Qi Hong's strength this newcomer can force out. Boring. The outcome of such a challenge has long been determined. Qi Hong is really shameless. Isn't he bullying a newcomer by issuing such a challenge? That's right. You still want to deceive yourself. Do you think that it's fair if you take out more of the quota for Calming Heart Lake? Fair my ass. We're going to win anyway, so what's the point of taking out more? Number 5 Calming Heart Pool. 5th younger sister, do you want to go or should I go? Sitting on the wall, Suan, who had a sloppy look on his face, smirked evilly. Lu Ying rolled her eyes at him. Call me 5th sister. If you want to go, go. You don't have to ask me. Suan smiled valiantly, the demonic patterns on his dark skin flashing. So easy? Are you disappointed or confident? Lu Ying's hands glowed as she repaired her armor. She didn't even raise her head as she said, You should know Lin Feng's strength better than I do. Lu Ying really didn't know much about Lin Feng. However, from what she had seen, Lin Feng didn't seem like an impulsive person. Therefore, she couldn't make a conclusion. Suan played with his dagger casually. 8-star top-notch strength. He has a very strong trump card. Once he unleashes his strength, he will be close to a 9-star. He should be ranked 10th to 12th in the Calming Heart Lake. Almost all the 8-star experts in the Milky Way's human race had a combat strength close to or even comparable to a 9-star expert. Lin Feng was brought here by Shi Dingshan and Suan. The two of them had seen Lin Feng's battle with Wu Erai. Therefore, they naturally knew more about Lin Feng's strength than Lu Ying. He's very smart. Since he dares to accept the challenge, he must be confident. Suan smirked evilly. In my opinion, when he entered Calming Heart Lake 2 years ago, he most likely improved one of his nomological Dao to perfection. From a top-notch 8-star to a peak 8-star, plus his trump card, In his opinion, he should have the strength to fight with Qi Hong. Lu Ying's pretty jade-like hand paused slightly as she nodded. Su An's deduction was highly likely. Qi Hong has 2 nomological Dao to perfection, and his attainment in space is very high. Lu Ying looked up at Suan. As far as I know, he has an outstanding true treasure, right? Suan nodded. The patriarch gave it to him. Lin Feng also got a Brahma. It's different, Lu Ying said. Qi Hong has had that outstanding true treasure for several eras. He is already proficient in it and can unleash most of its power. Yes. Suan smiled faintly, and his eyes were evil. He is 4th brother's disciple. I saw 4th brother teaching him 10 years ago. Under normal circumstances, he is already ranked 7th in the Calming Heart Lake, infinitely close to a 9-star expert. Once he unleashes the outstanding true treasure, his strength is comparable to a 4th-grade 9-star expert. Lu Ying frowned slightly. She knew that Suan would not lie to her. Lu Ying stopped what she was doing and hesitated slightly. She then looked up. I'll be the arbitrator. No, I want to go too. Suan crossed his arms in front of his chest and smiled. You. Lu Ying gritted her teeth. There's no need to argue. Suddenly, a heavenly voice was heard. Lu Ying and Suan were both surprised. An elegant and beautiful figure walked in from outside. She was dressed in a white robe that covered her graceful figure. It was mystery. The battle between Qi Hong and Lin Feng. Enigma said softly. I'll be the arbitrator. There was a sea of people. Although the Calming Heart battle arena was huge, there were also many clansmen watching the battle. Everyone was fighting to get to the front. No one wanted to miss this exciting battle. Wave after wave of discussions and curious gazes were all focused on the two figures on the battle arena. Number 7 Calming Heart Lake, the strongest 8-star expert, Chi Hong, was the only 8-star expert who remained undefeated. It was rumored that he had 9-star strength. Number 20 Calming Heart Lake, the newcomer, Lin Feng, caused a commotion the moment he entered the Calming Heart Lake. He was the only 8-star expert who joined the clan and was greatly nurtured by the patriarch. His potential was amazing. Everyone was looking forward to the battle between the two of them. It hasn't started yet? The arbitrator hasn't arrived yet. I can't wait. Let's start. I wonder who it is, Black Wheel King or Firefly King. It doesn't matter. No matter who it is, they won't be biased. This battle is the focus of everyone's attention. No matter if it's the Milky Way bloodline or the ancestor bloodline, they don't want to lose. Swoosh, swoosh, swoosh. 3 sonic booms suddenly resounded, causing the noisy environment to instantly quiet down. The clansmen widened their eyes in shock. There were 3 9-star experts, 1 at the front and 2 at the back. The one at the front was the Deputy Patriarch, Mystery. Chapter 1962. Deputy Chief. It's actually the Deputy Chief. I haven't seen the Deputy Chief for a long time. She's still so beautiful, just like a fairy. The surrounding clansmen all widened their eyes in excitement. Although there were 2 Deputy Chiefs in the clan, they were only in name. One was Shi Dingshan, and the other was Mystery. They represented the greatest power in the clan. After all, the chief, Dong Huang, was basically in seclusion and rarely took care of the clan's affairs. More than 99% of the clansmen were from the ancestors' bloodline. Although they respected Shi Dingshan, they couldn't help but be biased towards Mystery. After all, Mystery was the real ancestors' bloodline. Moreover, she was the first person from the ancestors' bloodline to reach the 9-star level. Mystery Ruler. Lin Feng also looked over. He had already seen all 6 9-star experts in the clan. The elegant and picturesque woman in front of him was like an unfathomable lake. Her eyes were filled with wisdom. 33rd on the Origin Awakening list. Lin Feng knew that Mystery Ruler was ranked above Wu Ergu and Lord Kanjia. She was the 3rd strongest expert in the clan, second only to the chief, Dong Huang, and the deputy chief, Shi Dingshan. She was also a rare female expert on the Origin Awakening list. I'll be the referee for this competition on behalf of my 6th brother, Suan. Do you have any objections? Mystery's voice was like a spring breeze. Time seemed to freeze in an instant. This was because every time there was an 8-star battle, a message would be sent to Luing and Suan. Whoever received the message would be the arbiter. This time, Suan received the message first, so he should be the referee. Actually, with Mystery's identity and status, there was no problem. However, it was reasonable for her to be the referee. As the deputy chief, she had to set an example. No objections. Sorry to trouble you, Mystery Ruler, Lin Feng and Chi Hong said. Don't embarrass us, kid, Suan shouted at Chi Hong. Then, his gaze fell on Lin Feng, and the corner of his mouth rose slightly. Lin Feng smiled back and nodded slightly. Although Suan from the Supreme Dragon Sky City was also present, Brother Shi was the one who recommended him and brought him back to the clan. However, Lin Feng didn't dislike Suan. He was clear about Suan's position. As a member of his ancestors' bloodline, he naturally didn't want his own people to suffer. Unfortunately, he doesn't know that I've already taken that step and become a 9-star expert. Lin Feng thought to himself. He knew that Chi Hong surely had a trump card. The Milky Way's human clan was one of the 5 great clans, and since Chi Hong was able to occupy the number 1 position amongst all the 8-star experts, his strength was surely obvious to all, and it was very likely that he was already comparable to a 9-star expert. But it was only comparable. As for himself, He was a genuine 9-star expert. The gap between them was too big. Lin Feng's heart skipped a beat. He turned his head and met Firefly King's beautiful eyes. She didn't say anything. She just looked at him quietly. Lin Feng grinned and nodded slightly. From Firefly King's eyes, it could be seen that she did not have much confidence in herself. But she still came. Very soon. After this battle, the entire clan will know that I, Lin Feng, have become a 9-star expert. Lin Feng didn't want to hide, and he couldn't hide at all. Normally, he could conceal his aura, but once the battle started, the difference would be obvious. However, there was no harm in exposing himself. Originally, he had planned to go to the Dongwang Palace to meet the clan leader first, and he would still be honest about his status as a 9-star expert. Now it was just a little earlier. The surrounding cheers were like thunder, and all the clansmen were in high spirits. A total of 3 9-star experts had arrived, and it was enough to show how important this battle was. Even the Enigma King, who was usually elusive, had appeared and volunteered to be the judge. They knew that it wasn't because of Qi Hong. It was because of the newcomer, Lin Feng. Even if Lin Feng lost today, it wouldn't prevent him from becoming a dazzling new star of the Milky Way's human clan. The clan would definitely nurture him, and in time, it wouldn't be difficult for him to surpass Qi Hong. At least today, I will defeat you. Qi Hong clenched his fists. He wasn't stupid. Even though he was the number 1 8-star expert, he had never been so valued by the clan. The difference between them was enough to make him feel a little jealous. However, it was precisely because of this that he wanted to win even more. I will tell everyone that I, Qi Hong, am the most outstanding one among the Milky Way's human clan. Qi Hong was full of fighting spirit, and patterns appeared on his black battle armor. A giant axe appeared in his hand, and there were extremely complicated secret patterns engraved on the surface of the axe. Lightning twined around it. Sizzle, 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 sizzle. The giant axe in Qi Hong's hand was no weaker than Lin Feng's Eclipse Mystic Saber. It was also a top-notch elite true treasure. Moreover, it was a perfect fit. It was enough to unleash the power of an ordinary excellent true treasure. After countless eras of training, Qi Hong could control it as he wished. With this sky-raising axe alone, he could already stand at the top of the 8-star experts. Not to mention, he still had a trump card, an extremely powerful trump card. Even a 9-star expert would fall for it if he wasn't careful. Are you all ready? Then, Enigma dragged out a short and long word. Begin. As soon as he finished speaking, it was as if a sunny day had suddenly turned into a violent storm. Lin Feng was still standing there. Qi Hong, who was already prepared, took the initiative to attack. The sky-raising axe revealed its loftiness, and lightning swept across the entire area. Kill! Kill! Whistling and roaring sounds could be heard. Everyone was extremely excited. At this moment, Qi Hong's aura had completely suppressed Lin Feng. Lin Feng was like a tiny speck of dust in a thunderstorm, unable to withstand any destruction. Not only Suan and Luing, but even Enigma, who was an arbiter, was slightly puzzled. He didn't understand what Lin Feng was planning. After all, the one who made the first move would gain the upper hand, especially in a battle arena. The one who attacked first would always have some advantage. Did he have a card up his sleeve? Or perhaps he was frightened? Suddenly Lin Feng moved. His hands passed through a 5-colored brilliance. In an instant, with the 5-colored light as the center, boundless light radiated outwards. The terrifying control of the black vortex had once again increased. After his bloodline had been strengthened, it wasn't only the divine inscriptions of light and divine inscriptions of darkness that had been strengthened. It also included the black vortex. Brahma domain. Lin Feng's control was even more stable than when he was an 8-star expert. The 5-colored brilliance instantly enveloped the entire battle arena, directly suppressing Qi Hong's domain. It was very calm, but it was also extremely powerful. What? Qi Hong's expression changed, and he suddenly felt uncomfortable. He was trapped in the Brahma domain. A huge palm suddenly appeared in the void, ignoring the sky, raising axes lightning and directly descending. Get out of my way! As Qi Hong roared, the sky raising axe became even more ferocious. Endless lightning turned into bolts of lightning, crazily tearing at the huge palm, riddling it with holes. Boom! Before the huge palm could land completely, it was destroyed. Back then, when the three Blood Might brothers were attacked by this move, even the Blood Might could only barely block it. The Jade Fox and Peach Arrow were also seriously injured. However, Lin Feng was stronger now. The huge palm condensed the full power of the Brahma domain, but it still couldn't hurt Qi Hong. The difference in their strength was obvious. Qi Hong was indeed worthy of being the strongest human below 9 stars in the Milky Way. Chapter 1963. However, he just had to run into Lin Feng. If it was Lin Feng before his breakthrough, Qi Hong might have a chance of winning. However, now that Lin Feng's strength had reached 9 star, even Suan might not be able to defeat him, let alone Qi Hong. Qi. The Eclipse Mystic Saber and the Perak Devil Saber appeared at the same time. One activated the divine pattern of light while the other activated the dark pattern of darkness. The third stage bloodline merged perfectly at this moment. Even the black whirlpool entered an extremely stable state. There was no need to purposely merge them. His bloodline was self-contained. The Perak Devil Saber had only absorbed a tiny bit of blood and was already glowing. Lin Feng, whose Tao of Dark Demon had reached perfection, could already unleash most of the Perak Devil Saber's power. Its full power was comparable to an outstanding cardinal treasure. Of course, the price was also shocking. After all, the Perak Devil Saber needed to absorb blood. Lin Feng didn't need to expend so much effort to deal with Qi Hong. Moreover, Lin Feng hadn't cultivated the myriad Heaven Dao's light and darkness fusion technique. He was far from being able to control the light and darkness energy at full power. After his strength had reached 9 star, just any type of energy would have a huge increase in power. Moreover, his Tao of Light Speed and Tao of Dark Demon had both reached perfection. The extent of the increase was hard to estimate. The Eclipse Mystic Saber had only unleashed the tip of the iceberg. The power of the first layer of secret patterns could barely be controlled and fused. However, it had already surpassed any battle in the past. The 9 star and 8 star levels were two completely different levels. Tao of Dark Demon has reached perfection? As expected, he must have comprehended it at the Calming Heart Lake 2 years ago. Suan, who was proficient in the Tao of Darkness, immediately saw through Lin Feng's strength. This saber is not bad either. TSK. Tao of Light Speed has reached perfection. On the other side, Lu Ying, who was proficient in the Tao of Light, had her beautiful eyes flickering. His divine pattern of light is so complicated. Compared to mine, it is actually better? Light and darkness bloodlines? Mystery was the most shocked. She pursed her red lips and revealed a look of disbelief. These two bloodlines can actually coexist? Moreover, it can even fuse the light and darkness energy? Unbelievable. Mystery opened her red lips slightly, and her beautiful eyes sparkled with astonishment. She had come here for Lin Feng. What she saw before her eyes was indeed special and brought her many pleasant surprises. She could be considered to be experienced and knowledgeable. She knew almost all of the bloodlines of the 9 star elites on the Origin Awakening list. They were all very powerful, and some of them were even heaven-defying. However, she had never seen a bloodline as special as Lin Feng's. Wait a minute. Enigma was stunned for a moment, but all his attention was on Lin Feng's bloodline, and he neglected the other part. Energy. How can his origin energy be so strong? And his aura? Even Mystery, who had always been well-mannered and could remain calm even in the face of earth-shattering events, was deeply moved and revealed a look of shock. What did she see? What is this? This kind of energy fluctuation and this kind of attack power was definitely not something that an 8-star expert could possess. What was most clear was his aura, the aura of a life form. He was completely on the same level as them. Lin Feng has actually broken through to the 9-star level. Mystery was surprised and delighted, and her beautiful eyes lit up. At this moment, the two rays of light, one white and one black, had already interacted with each other and condensed into one. The two solitary and different battle blades seemed to have transformed into one battle blade. Under the range of the Brahma domain, Lin Feng attacked while facing Qi Hong, who was filled with battle intent. Thousand obscuring heavenly saber, first move. Turning into dust. Boom! It was an absolutely powerful attack that shrouded the entire area. With a rumbling sound, the saber directly broke through the lightning and thunder. The incomparably powerful Raising Sky axe and the light and darkness origins completely devoured the lightning and thunder, leaving not a single drop behind. This is impossible. Qi Hong widened his eyes in shock, and his mind was in a daze. In his opinion, this was a battle without any suspense. With his strength, he could easily defeat the newcomer in front of him. However, when the axe that he was most proud of cleaved down, it was like a lone boat rushing into the sea and was directly engulfed. He had no power to resist. The difference was too great. Qi Hong felt as if he was in a boundless sea, and his protective armor was crumbling. The terrifying power engulfed him and destroyed everything. With a boom, a sharp pain attacked his heart, and his chest felt as if it had been struck by lightning. Bang! Qi Hong fell heavily on the ground, and the sound was as heavy as thunder. The surrounding clansmen, who were originally cheering excitedly, were all dumbfounded. When they saw this scene, time seemed to stop for a moment. In front of this ordinary-looking newcomer, the strongest 8-star expert of their ancestors' bloodline, Qi Hong, with just one move, he was defeated miserably. What happened? What happened in such a short time? How did Qi Hong lose? Everyone looked at each other. Their vision was too narrow. Besides the 8-star experts present, only a few 7-star experts were able to see it clearly. Of course, Enigma, Lu Ying, and Su An naturally saw it clearly. However, because they saw it clearly, they were even more shocked. It's impossible, right? Su An's expression was a little funny, and the corners of his mouth twitched. It was Lin Feng's attack power just now that was almost at the level of his strength. Lu Ying, on the other hand, smiled. Her beautiful eyes were sparkling as she looked at Lin Feng curiously. She really wanted to know when this super newcomer of the Milky Way bloodline had broken through to the 9-star level. Lin Feng wins. Mystery remained calm, but waves of emotions were surging in her heart. The Milky Way's human race had another 9-star expert. To Mystery, she didn't care whether the new 9-star expert was from their ancestors' bloodline or the Milky Way bloodline. As long as the Milky Way's human race became stronger, she would be happy. No, I don't accept this. Qi Hong struggled to get up and wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth. He was like an injured beast, and his eyes were full of ferocity. He wasn't willing to lose just like that. I haven't lost yet. A light flashed in Qi Hong's hand, and he took out a spiked ball that was filled with tyrannical thunder energy. It was his strongest trump card, a thunder element outstanding treasure. With this treasure, he could unleash his strongest combat power. However, he didn't have time to unleash it and was defeated in one move. Qi Hong was naturally unwilling to accept this. Mystery looked over and said indifferently, "The outcome has been decided. There's no need to argue." Deputy Patriarch. Qi Hong was so anxious that his face turned red, and his veins popped out. He didn't want to lose. If he lost, he would lose all his face. He still had 60 days of quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake. Lin Feng held back just now. Mystery looked at the most outstanding 8-star expert of the ancestors' bloodline, hinting that there was no need to continue fighting. She knew clearly that their strength wasn't on the same level. I didn't use my full strength either," Chi Hong said with a red face. "Alright, kid, don't embarrass yourself. There's nothing embarrassing about losing to him." Su An's figure flashed and landed directly on the battle ring. He looked at Lin Feng with a gloomy gaze and the corners of his mouth lifted slightly. "He is a 9-star expert." Chapter 1964. He was a 9-star strong man. It was just a short sentence, but it was as heavy as 1,000 caddies. Everyone was shocked. Chi Hong, who bore the brunt of Lin Feng's attack, opened his eyes wider than copper bells as he looked at Lin Feng in astonishment, as if he was looking at a monster. Tan Xiaoxiao, who wasn't far behind him, was shocked to the point his jaw almost fell off. Did he hear it wrong? Lin Feng, who was still fighting with him 2 years ago, was now a 9-star strong man? What a joke! Was it so easy to break through the 9-star level? This. Chi Hong was completely speechless, as if he was a mute. Black Wheel King is right. Enigma's beautiful eyes scanned the surroundings and said to the stunned people, "Lin Feng has indeed become a 9-star strong man. This is great news for the Milky Way's human tribe. From today onwards, the Milky Way's human tribe has one more 9-star strong man. From today onwards, the Milky Way's human tribe will have 7 9-star strong men like the Z-Way Star Tower." Her soft voice seeped into their hearts and lungs and had boundless magic. Enigma's voice was filled with pride. At this moment, everyone's eyes were shining as if they were in a dream. They didn't expect that happiness would come so suddenly. In this short moment, the Milky Way's human tribe had one more 9-star strong man. That was a 9-star strong man who stood at the top of the Origin Awakening continent. It represented the standard of a tribe or force's strength. Clap, 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 clap. Thunderous applause was dedicated to Lin Feng. At this moment, there was no distinction between the ancestors and the Milky Way's human tribe. All the people were filled with pride and were extremely excited to be a member of the Milky Way's human tribe. Lin Feng! Lin Feng! Lin Feng! Cheers rose from all directions and shot into the sky. Their excited faces were filled with excitement and joy, as if they had completely forgotten what had just happened. Even Chi Hong had come back to his senses at this moment. He smiled bitterly and looked up at Lin Feng. Previously, he did have the heart to fight, but now it was gone. Other than admiration and lamentation, there was nothing else. Although his strength was comparable to a 9-star expert, it was only comparable. There was still a huge gap between him and a true 9-star expert. Just as Suan had said, there was nothing shameful about losing to a 9-star expert. However, losing the 60-day quota for Tranquil Heart Lake all of a sudden was still very painful. But there was nothing he could do about it. Disasters from the heavens could be avoided, but disasters from one's own doing could not be avoided. "I'm really stupid." Chi Hong spat softly as he shook his head. If he hadn't tried to show off by challenging Lin Feng, this wouldn't have happened. Right now, he had gone for wool and come home shorn. Learn from your mistakes. Chi Hong looked at Lin Feng, who was conversing with the Firefly King and the Black Wheel King. He felt bitter in his heart. However, he still had to find an opportunity to apologize later. Otherwise, it would be troublesome if Lin Feng bore a grudge against him. "Brat, you're really something. Sneaking around, when did you break through?" Su secretly smiled and raised his eyebrows. "I just broke through and was preparing to meet the Patriarch." Lin Feng replied with a smile and looked at Chi Hong, who was not far away. When Chi Hong saw Lin Feng looking over, he smiled apologetically and said, "But I was stopped by Chi Hong. This brat suffered a huge loss. TSK, the 60-day quota for Tranquil Heart Lake." Suan looked at Lin Feng and winked, hinting at something. Luing snorted and said, "Why? You guys wanted to bet, and now you want to return it after losing? How can there be such a good thing? Ignore her. 7th brother, 5th sister is here." Lin Feng had just become a 9-star expert and was ranked 7th in the tribe. Suan spread out his hands and shrugged. I didn't say anything. Mi Qing said, 6th brother meant to give face to Qi Hong. After all, Qi Hong is the disciple of 4th brother, Song Ye. The 60-day quota for Tranquil Heart Lake isn't a lot. The key is Song Ye's face. Lin Feng understood. His disciple had been schemed against and taken away the 60-day quota for Tranquil Heart Lake. Song Ye would definitely lose face. After all, Lin Feng was a 9-star expert and Qi Hong was only an 8-star expert. What Mi Qing and Suan meant was to give face to Song Ye and do him a favor. From their point of view, this was understandable. After all, there were only a few 9-star experts in a tribe. If they could be more peaceful and united, the tribe would be stronger. Moreover, the quota for Tranquil Heart Lake wasn't very useful to a 9-star expert. However, from Lin Feng's point of view, it was different. The one who provoked first was cheap. If he wasn't a 9-star expert and was only an 8-star newcomer, Qi Hong would have challenged him. If he didn't accept the challenge, it would be equivalent to throwing the reputation of the Milky Way. If he accepted the challenge, he would basically lose. How could he bully him? It was just that Qi Hong wanted to win too much and wanted to suppress him. Moreover, he needed the quota for Tranquil Heart Lake to comprehend the Great Perfection Realm. The more the better. There were even 100,000 origin realms above the Great Perfection Realm. The comprehension of realms was endless. How could he complain about having more? A 9-star expert didn't need to comprehend the origin of laws. That was because they were too short-sighted. 100,000 origin realms were very strong, but comprehension was very slow and difficult. The most troublesome thing was that even if you comprehended 0.1%, your strength was no different from the Great Perfection Realm. Therefore, the Great Perfection Realm was already the limit in Origin Awakened Continent. As for himself, before 100,000 origin realms, there were still 10 great Tao of laws to comprehend to the Great Perfection Realm. Only then could he cultivate the first volume of Ancestor Wanqian's painstaking effort, the Wanqian Tao. The requirements were extremely high. But obviously, once he cultivated it, his strength would increase tremendously. Third sister, 6th brother, don't worry. I have a way to deal with it, Lin Feng said to Mi Qing and Suan with an apologetic smile. He knew that they had good intentions and weren't biased towards Qi Hong. Mi Qing and Suan looked at each other. Seeing that they couldn't persuade Lin Feng, there was nothing they could do. Now that Lin Feng was a 9-star expert, his status in the tribe was actually the same as theirs. There was no difference in status. They naturally couldn't order Lin Feng to hand over the quota for Tranquil Heart Lake. Moreover, if they did that, it would only disappoint a genius expert. Was it worth it for a mere 60 days quota for Tranquil Heart Lake? Lin Feng's talent wasn't inferior to the tribe leaders. It'll be fine after you explain. Suan said, 4th brother's temper is just a bit fiery, but he's not a bad person. If I meet him, I'll help you. In the end, it's Qi Hong's fault. Mi Qing looked at Lin Feng and said, remember not to be angry. 7th brother, if you really lack the quota for Tranquil Heart Lake, I'll give it to you. No need, 3rd sister. Lin Feng refused with a smile. After chatting with the three for a while, Lin Feng left under the admiring gazes of the clansmen. It had already been an hour since his battle with Qi Hong, and Lin Feng believed that the news of him becoming a 9-star martial artist had already spread out. The Patriarch and Brother Shi should know about it. Let's see if I can get more quota for Tranquil Heart Lake from the tribe leader. Chapter 1965. In Dong Wang Palace, swords of different styles were suspended in the air. The entire Dong Wang prefecture was like a huge castle. There was a layer of invisible sword qi around it, shining with cold light. Entering it again, it felt different. Lin Feng's strength had changed. Clang, clang, clang. The swords made a buzzing sound from time to time, which went straight into his mind. Lin Feng was not affected at all. He stepped into this place that was like a holy land of swords. In front of him, a black figure in martial attire was holding a sword with one hand. The sound of the swords around him was heavier, as if they were triggering the great bell array. It was Dong Wang, the patriarch. Clang, clang, clang. The sound of the swords was louder than the one before. Endless sword will shot out from the swords in the sky. In an instant they flew rapidly, like flying swords that were controlled by someone, piercing through the air sharply. Lin Feng instantly understood the patriarch's intention. Chi. Two swords were unsheathed. They were the Eclipse Mystic Saber and the Perak Demon Saber. Patriarch, please enlighten me. Lin Feng's combat strength erupted. The Brahma domain was displayed, and the black wings of warmth were fully unfolded. The entire space seemed to be lifted, causing the surrounding flying swords to tremble slightly. Oh! Dong Wang's voice was slightly surprised, and he rarely smiled. Sword light flashed between his eyebrows, and in an instant, the slightly fluctuating space stabilized. There were no more waves. Amazing! Lin Feng was secretly shocked, but he was not surprised. The person he was facing now was a transcendent existence ranked 6th on the Source Awakening list. He had been a 9-star cultivator for countless eras, and his strength was unfathomable. It could even be said that he had single-handedly created and strengthened the human clan of the Milky Way. Dong Wang, the patriarch, was a legendary figure. Attack me with all your strength. Dong Wang's voice rang out, shaking the main hall. The sword will of the flying swords suddenly increased, bringing more pressure to Lin Feng. Okay. Lin Feng's eyes flashed, and his aura also soared. Ever since he had become a 9-star expert, he had yet to truly fight a battle. His battle with Qi Hong was merely a warm-up. Now that he was facing off against the patriarch, he could finally unleash his full power without any pressure. Let's see how strong I am now. Lin Feng didn't hold back, and his attack suddenly burst out. After a while, Dong Wang Palace returned to peace. One by one, the swords returned to their original state. Dong Wang, the patriarch, was still standing there, but there was no longer any aggressive sword will. At this moment, it was as if ice and snow had melted, giving people a warm feeling. Good, very good. Dong Wang's eyes flashed with sword light. Looking at Lin Feng, he did not hide his appreciation for talent. Top talent, top bloodline, and top temperament. The human race of the Milky Way has a successor. Dong Wang laughed heartily and said, peerless 3 times in a row. He was very satisfied. With his strength and experience, he would naturally know just how strong Lin Feng was and what his talent was like after exchanging blows with him. In Dong Wang's opinion, as long as such a genius grew up, he would at least reach the top 10 of the Origin Awakening list. Among all the 9-star strongmen, he would be in the first tier. However, what Dong Wang didn't know was that, in fact, what he had seen was only the tip of the iceberg of Lin Feng. Even so, it was already shocking enough. The patriarch is indeed powerful. Lin Feng admired Dong Wang very much. No matter how much he bombarded Dong Wang, even if he used his most powerful skill, Dong Wang could easily block it without any effort. At present, his strength was still far from that of the patriarch. The gap between him and Qi Hong was even greater. Don't be restrained. 7th brother, since you have stepped into the 9-star level, we are peers. Just like 2nd brother and 3rd brother, you can call me Big Brother. I have just walked a little more than you on this path, Dong Wang said. Big Brother, Lin Feng said respectfully. As far as he knew, only Brother Sure and Sister Mystery dared to call Dong Wang Big Brother, while 5th sister and 6th brother usually called him Patriarch. I didn't expect that a peerless genius like you would appear in my Milky Way bloodline. It is really a joy for my Milky Way human clan. Dong Wang was very satisfied. Although you have just broken through not long ago, your strength is close to the upper end of the 4th tier. I believe that it won't be long before you can be on par with fifth sister and sixth brother. I am very pleased. The fourth tier was after the 50th rank on the Origin Awakening list, which was also the last tier. Generally, martial artists who had just broken through to the 9-star level were basically at the bottom, which meant that they were ranked below the 70th rank. It was extremely rare to see someone like Lin Feng, whose strength was in the upper end of the fourth tier. It should be known that there were very few 9-star strong men, and each of them had been famous for a long time. Their strength was naturally not comparable to those who had just broken through to the 9-star level. It seems that the strength I just displayed should be around the 60th rank on the Origin Awakening list in the Patriarch's opinion. Lin Feng didn't use his full strength. What a joke! If he used his full strength, how much blood would the demon Perishing Blade suck? How much spatial energy would the black vortex consume? Especially now that he was at the 9-star level, every full-strength attack would consume Lin Feng greatly. If I use my full strength, my strength should be about the same as sixth brother's. Even if I am not, it shouldn't be too far off, Lin Feng thought to himself. Sixth brother Suan was ranked 54th on the Origin Awakening list. As for fifth sister Luing, her ranking was slightly higher. She was ranked 50th and barely squeezed into the third tier. The third tier was very large. Ranked 31st to 50th were all in the third tier. Among them, third sister Enigma was ranked 33rd, fourth brother Tsangya was ranked 39th. The Destiny Race's Wu Arai, who had attacked him in the Extreme Dragon Sky City, was also ranked 42nd. I just entered the 9-star level. My strength still has a lot of room for improvement. It shouldn't be a problem for me to reach the third tier in a short period of time and be similar to fifth sister's strength. Lin Feng was very confident. After all, his life force had increased, and his abilities in all aspects had increased greatly. He just needed time. This included his realm and using supreme treasures. He needed to cultivate. Take the Eclipse Mystic Saber for example. Now, he could completely unlock the third layer of secret engravings and display his strength. If I can comprehend all 12 nomological Great Daos to perfection and successfully cultivate the first volume of the Wanqian Dao, my strength will have a great breakthrough, Lin Feng thought. He was not strong enough now, especially when his opponent was the Destiny Race. Back then, when fifth sister entered the 9-star level, I rewarded her with 1 million contribution points, a 300-day quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake, and an outstanding supreme treasure. Dong Wang looked at Lin Feng with bright eyes. Your talent far surpasses fifth sister's. I'll give you 2 million contribution points, a 600-day quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake, and the supreme treasure. Including the Brahma that I gave you in advance, it's 2 treasures. Dong Wang smiled. If fifth sister knows, she'll probably say that I'm biased. Lin Feng also smiled. How could she not say that? Dong Wang had given him twice as much as fifth sister. However, for him, the more the better, especially the quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake and the outstanding supreme treasure, which he urgently needed. If you have any requirements for the quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake, tell me. I'll arrange it for you. Dong Wang looked at Lin Feng. If you need it urgently, you can use it in advance. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. In addition, your all-knowing saber realm is too shallow. You can't grasp the essence. Dong Wang said, there are still 25 days before your next quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake. You can stay here during this time. What did he mean? The Patriarch was going to teach him in person? Lin Feng was overjoyed. Thank you, brother. Chapter 1966. The Ultimate Saber Proficiency Realm was very difficult. It had completely exceeded the level of the Dark Domain Master. Although Lin Feng's talent with the saber was extraordinary, his current comprehension was less than 40%. He had not completely mastered the second move of the obscuring heavenly saber, Tears of Chaos. However, as his life level increased, his comprehension would undoubtedly increase by a lot. Life level was very important to the comprehension of realms. Just like a frog at the bottom of a well, it could only see the sky above the well. A frog in a lake could see the entire lake, and if it could jump out of the lake, it could see the entire world. 25 days. How much you can comprehend depends on yourself. Patriarch Dongwang shook his head and pointed. In an instant, a purple sword rushed over. It was different from the flying swords of the sword array. This was a superior treasure sword. Clang! The sword vibrated and emitted a fierce aura. Although Patriarch Dongwang was very far away, this purple sword seemed to be controlled by a pair of invisible hands. It quickly attacked Lin Feng. Pung! 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 Perfect to the extreme. Lin Feng's eyes lit up. The sword technique that Patriarch Dongwang used did not have any energy. It was just a simple sword move. He was quickly brought into that pure feeling. It was as if there was a pair of invisible hands guiding him to practice the saber. In the confrontation between the saber and the sword, he could vaguely feel the essence of the ultimate saber proficiency realm. It was like the countless stars in the starry sky, the reefs in the endless sea. Comprehension, inspiration, Lin Feng was quickly immersed in it. He could not help but practice the saber and comprehend the ultimate saber proficiency realm. His comprehension is indeed high. Patriarch Dongwang's eyes flashed and he smiled. To be able to see such an excellent descendant of the clan with his own eyes was a great joy for him and the clan. He is now in the ultimate saber proficiency realm. He has comprehended about 30%. In 25 days, he can comprehend 60% to 70%. Patriarch Dongwang would not teach Lin Feng step by step, even if it was not difficult for him. It was easy to go from 30% to 60% or 70%, but from 60% to 90%, it would take 10 times more time. If he wanted to go from 90% to 100%, it would take hundreds of times more time. What's more, even if the master could show the way, it was still up to the individual to cultivate. He and Lin Feng couldn't even be considered as master and disciple. They were just giving some pointers when they saw an outstanding descendant of the clan. Soon, the turbulent void will open. Donghuang's eyes were filled with fighting intent. He was already eager to give it a try. He had made all the necessary preparations for this samsara's turbulent void. He was much stronger than he was in the previous samsara. Jiao Kong, Poison Rose, Donghuang, will make you pay for what you did that day. Donghuang's eyes were filled with fighting spirit. In the tranquil heart world, the news of Lin Feng becoming a 9-star powerhouse had already spread. At first, there were still some clansmen who didn't believe it. Only when the 2 vice-clan leaders appeared and officially announced this matter did the entire clan erupt into an uproar. Every clansman was unable to contain their joy and were filled with a strong sense of pride. Among the 8 major forces and the 5 major clans, the largest number of 9-star experts was only 7. The Milky Way's human tribe, as a newly risen tribe, had also reached the number of 7, shocking the Origin enlightened continent. Very strong. You didn't see that battle. You were so unlucky. Yes, Lord Lin Feng is very powerful. Lord Qihong is already at the peak of 8-star strength, comparable to a 9-star expert. However, in front of Lord Lin Feng, he didn't even have the power to fight back. I heard that Lord Lin Feng's strength is comparable to that of the Black Wheel King. Everyone spoke one after another, and the atmosphere of the entire clan was heated. Every clansman was extremely proud and honored. After all, they were all part of the clan. Even Qihong, who was defeated by Lin Feng, didn't have any resentment in his heart. As Suan said, what was there to be embarrassed about being defeated by a 9-star expert? As for the quota of Tranquil Heart Lake, it was entirely his own greed that caused him to lose to Lin Feng. As the saying goes, a man whose heart is not content is like a snake trying to swallow an elephant. At this time, Lin Feng was concentrating on cultivating in the Donghuang Palace. In less than 3 days, his ultimate saber proficiency had passed 40% and was close to 50%. The speed of improvement was extremely fast. Every time he clashed with the purple treasured sword, Lin Feng gained many insights. On the one hand, his comprehension was indeed amazing. On the other hand, after breaking through to the 9-star level, Lin Feng's original shackles were no longer hindered. In addition, with the deliberate guidance of the clan leader, Dong Wang, he naturally mastered it. During this period of time, rather than saying that it was the teachings of Dong Wang, it was better to say that Lin Feng had melted the iceberg into drops of water and absorbed some of the saber techniques that he had not been able to comprehend before through the interpretation of the patriarch. The speed of improvement during this period of time was often the fastest. After that, the speed of comprehension would gradually decrease until it was less and less. If he only relied on the guidance of Dong Wang, the efficiency of comprehension would be much slower. This was one of the reasons why Dong Wang only taught Lin Feng for 25 days. It was because he knew that 25 days was enough. 60 to 70%. Dong Wang had a clear estimation of the progress of Lin Feng's comprehension of saber's finality. After all, he started from 0 and improved to 100% of saber's finality. Therefore, Dong Wang was very clear about the process. However, on the 7th day he was shocked. This was because Lin Feng's comprehension speed was completely beyond his expectations. The speed of comprehension should gradually slow down, but 7th brother didn't slow down? Dong Wang was slightly surprised, and there was satisfaction in his eyes. Such a high comprehension speed. Perhaps it's because he can become a 9-star expert in a very short time. Everyone had something they were good at. This was especially true for a super genius who had appeared out of nowhere. Therefore, although Dong Wang was a little surprised, it was still within the acceptable range. However, as the days passed, Dong Wang was more and more shocked. This was because Lin Feng's comprehension speed was gradually accelerating instead of slowing down. This was incredible. 3 days ago, 7th brother had already comprehended more than 70%. Now he's close to 80%? Dong Wang was a little stunned and couldn't help laughing. It was known that the higher the level, the harder it was to improve. The realms in front of him were like a beach, and he could easily grab a handful of them. However, the later levels were like the sand on the beach that had been marked. At this time, one needed to pick them out bit by bit, and the efficiency was naturally reduced. When one comprehended 90%, one had to pick them up one by one. A natural saber man, Dong Wang sighed. Having a high comprehension speed only proved that one's cultivation speed was fast. However, having such a high saber compatibility meant that he was a natural saber man. Not only was his comprehension speed of saber techniques extremely fast, but his saber moves were also more powerful. His combat strength was often quite terrifying. However, Dong Wang didn't know that although Lin Feng's saber realm and comprehension were high, he was not so heaven-defying. There was another reason. Chapter 1967. Thousand Obscuring Heavenly Blade. This set of blade techniques taught by Ancestor Wanqian was extremely mysterious and extraordinary. One had to know that with Ancestor Wanqian's realm and status, if the blade techniques he created were ordinary, they wouldn't be engraved in the bloodline. This was a set of top-notch blade techniques that combined both combat and guidance. Blade techniques were generally divided into 2 categories. One was to guide the blade technique and practice it continuously to comprehend the realm of the blade technique. This type of blade technique was usually weaker. The other was to fight the blade technique. The power of this type of blade technique varied, but it was extremely difficult to comprehend the realm of the blade technique. However, it was rare to see the 2 types perfectly fused together. So, this is the true power of the Thousand Obscuring Heavenly Blade. Lin Feng was completely immersed in the comprehension of the blade technique. On one hand, he had the guidance and training of Patriarch Dong Wang, and on the other hand, He had the comprehension of the thousand obscuring heavenly blade. The two combined and blended with each other. It could be said that 1 + 1 was far greater than 2. Naturally, his realm improved quickly. Just a little more, just a little more. Lin Feng felt that his surroundings were filled with the intent of the blade technique. The purple sword in front of him became more and more blurry, and it was replaced by the two blades in his hands. Light and darkness intertwined, inexplicably blending together like a zither and a zither. So, this is the true essence of the fourth move, boundless weight. The boundless intent gathered and turned into droplets of water that poured into his mind. At this moment, Lin Feng understood everything in his heart. The two blades in his hands changed again, as if they had a life of their own. The power of the realm transformed. The mystery of the fifth move, thousand obscuring heavenly blade, was suddenly comprehended. He had a 9-star life rating. Now, Lin Feng's perception and realm were completely different from before. There were 5 levels of the thousand obscuring heavenly blade, and each level was a move. Only when one's realm reached a certain level could they comprehend the next move. Lin Feng had comprehended the second move before, and now he had comprehended the last move, which was also the strongest move, thousand obscuring heavenly blade with 100% comprehension. Unfortunately, there wasn't enough time. A full 25 days passed in the blink of an eye. Phew! Dong Wang also let out a sigh of relief. The purple sword hummed and flew back to the main hall. Looking at the young human in front of him, Dong Wang sighed in his heart. It was too terrifying. A short 25 days had far exceeded his expectations. In the saber realm, every 10% is a bottleneck. It's extremely difficult to cross it, especially the last 3 points, 70%, 80%, and 90%. Dong Wang's heart was in turmoil and he could not calm down. His previous estimation of Lin Feng was already very high, over 60%, but not 70%. The further he went, the more time he would need to spend. However, Lin Feng had not only crossed the 70% threshold, he had even crossed the 80% threshold. That was dozens of times harder than crossing the 70% threshold. All those years ago, he'd studied it by himself, and he'd spent an entire few eras before he'd succeeded. Dong Wang didn't even think about it. It was impossible for such a warrior to exist. The talent and aptitude that Lin Feng displayed was already enough to shock him. It's breathtaking. Dong Wang couldn't help but smile. If that old man Jiao Kong knew that we had such a peerless genius, he would be furious. The competition between Dong Wang and Dragon Emperor Jiao Kong was very fierce. Neither side wanted to fall behind in the personal battle or the competition between the clans. As one of the 5 major clans, they all wanted to suppress the other. It's over. Lin Feng held the saber in his hand. Although his comprehension was still clear, it was much less. Without the guidance of Dong Wang, it was not easy to comprehend the obscuring heavenly saber by itself. Especially now that he had comprehended the last level, it was even more difficult. It'll take at least a few years to go from 80% to 100%, even with the guidance of the clan leader. Lin Feng smiled. He knew that the higher the level of the mastery of saber, the harder it was to improve. Dong Wang, the clan leader, was very busy. It was a great favor to teach him without reservation for 25 days. In the end, one had to rely on oneself to become a strong warrior. In 25 days, his mastery of saber had increased from 30% to 80%, which was a full 50% increase. He benefited a lot. Thank you for your guidance. Lin Feng opened his eyes, which were full of saber essence, and bowed slightly. Go prepare well, Dong Wang said. Prepare well? Lin Feng instantly understood what the clan leader meant. Previously, he was not strong enough. Even when he entered the turbulent void, he followed the fifth sister and could not contribute much to the clan. But now it was different. Not to mention other things, just the mastery of saber had reached 80%, and his combat strength had improved a lot. In the eyes of the clan leader, his current strength should be comparable to the sixth brother, Suin, but in fact, his strength had surpassed the fifth sister. Because he had the top saber move, the obscuring heavenly saber. However, he had just comprehended the obscuring heavenly saber. If he wanted to exert 100% of its power, he still needed some time to familiarize himself with it, practice, and even fight on the spot. After saying goodbye to Dongwang, Lin Feng immediately left Dongwang Palace. He had delayed the clan leader for a long time. After all, the clan leader had a lot of things to do. His own cultivation alone could not be delayed. The turbulent void was about to open. It could be said that the strength of Dongwang, the clan leader, directly determined the harvest of the Milky Way human tribe. Every time the turbulent void opened, it was a reshuffling of the major forces and clans. In such a tight situation, he still taught him without reservation. This kindness was very heartwarming. It's almost time to go to Tranquil Lake. Let's go to the second brother first. Lin Feng rushed to Tranquil Lake No. 2. He was still somewhat unfamiliar with his eldest brother, Dongwang, but he was much more familiar with his second brother, Shi Dingshan. On the one hand, Shi Dingshan had a gentle personality, just like a kind elder. On the other hand, he was brought back by Shi Dingshan. Like a guide, he was naturally close to him. The affairs of the clan were basically handled by the second brother, Shi Dingshan, and the third sister, Enigma. After all, one person was definitely too busy. Even if they were busy, they would not have time to cultivate. Among them, the quota of Tranquil Lake and the allocation of time were decided by the second brother, Shi Dingshan. This reflected the difference in status between the second brother and the third sister. Tranquil Lake was the most important asset of the Milky Way human tribe. Obviously, the second brother had a higher status in the clan. After all, he and Dongwang belonged to the Milky Way human tribe. After all, he was a super strong person ranked 25th on the Source Awakening list. He was even more powerful than the third sister, Enigma. After comprehending the time quota of Tranquil Lake this time, I'll go practice the saber to improve my combat strength. Lin Feng's saber heart was still surging. After all, he had just finished cultivating. It was more suitable to cultivate saber techniques now. However, the quota of Tranquil Lake was more important. Anyway, he had already comprehended the realm. He was not in a hurry. There would not be any bottlenecks because of this. However, I still feel that there is something strange about the 10,000 obscuring heavenly saber. Since it's engraved in the bloodline, logically speaking, it shouldn't be just an ordinary set of saber moves. Oh. Chapter 1968. Number 2 Calming Heart Lake, where Shi Dingshan's residence was located. It has been decided? Impossible. Who decided it? Fifth brother or sixth sister? They don't have that much Calming Heart Lake left. His voice was cold and had a hint of impatience. His steel-like body gave off a terrifying feeling that it couldn't be shaken. His muscles were bulging, and he was emitting a murderous aura. It was Songya. It's the Patriarch. Shi Dingshan hesitated and said. Songya looked at Shi Dingshan coldly and said, Impossible. The Patriarch is always the last to decide. It is the same for you and third sister. Second brother, we are brothers. Why don't you get straight to the point? Shi Dingshan said righteously, the Patriarch decided it. Fourth brother, this year's quota is reserved for seventh brother. Seventh brother? Songya frowned. The new 9-star expert Lin Feng. Although Songya had been cultivating, he knew about the huge incident that happened in the clan, including the fact that his disciple, Qi Hong, lost the 60-day Calming Heart Lake quota. However, he didn't care too much about it. Songya had a cold personality and was more concerned about himself. Therefore, after Lin Feng broke through, he had met the Patriarch, Dong Huang and Suin. However, he had never met Songya. It wasn't that Songya looked down on Lin Feng. When Suan broke through, Songya was just as cold. It was his personality. So I still have to wait for 2 years? Songya's expression was cold. Every round of Calming Heart Lake quota was 10 years. There was still 1 year left for this round. In addition to the next round, he had to wait for 2 years. More than 2 years. Shi Dingshan said. After Lin Feng, fifth sister said it for half a year. Songya frowned even more. 2.5 years. Originally, he didn't care too much about it. 10 years was just a blink of an eye. However, the turbulent void was about to open soon. He couldn't cultivate in the Calming Heart Lake after it opened. If he missed the opportunity, he would suffer great losses. Therefore, this round of Calming Heart Lake quota was very important to him. If he had 1 year, Songya was confident that he could increase his strength by 10%. One had to know that with Songya's current strength and ranking, 10% was already a huge amount. It was more than the combined strength of ordinary 9-star experts. It was decided by the Patriarch. Songya wasn't an idiot. He knew that since the Patriarch had decided on this matter, it would be difficult for him to interfere. The allocation of quotas for Tranquil Heart Lake followed a principle, first come, first serve. If Lin Feng was only an 8-star expert, he could still replace him. But now Lin Feng was at the same level as him, and they were all 9-star strongmen. There was no difference in status, even for the Patriarch. But for the Patriarch, Dong Wang, the quota of Tranquil Lake was no longer important. There's no other way. Let's wait, Shi Dingshan said. Suddenly, a clansman came in and reported, Deputy Patriarch, Lord Lin Feng is here. Lin Feng? Shi Dingshan and Songya's eyes lit up. Brother Shi, fourth brother. Lin Feng greeted them with a smile. You're here, seventh brother. Shi Dingshan laughed heartily. He wasn't surprised. Dong Wang had already told him to make things easier for Lin Feng. Therefore, he left 1 year's quota of Tranquil Heart Lake for Lin Feng. Even though they were all 9-star experts, Lin Feng had just become a 9-star expert. Songya and Lu Ying had been 9-star experts for a long time. The same quota of Tranquil Heart Lake time was very different. Seventh brother. Songya nodded. I'm sorry, fourth brother. Please don't take what happened before to heart. Lin Feng wasn't afraid of offending King Songya. But since they were all from the same clan, he naturally hoped to see each other on good terms. It would be best if he could turn a small matter into nothing. There's no need to talk about Qi Hong. He thought too highly of himself. If he was willing to bet, he should admit defeat, King Songya said directly. His expression was cold, and no one could tell what he was feeling. But there's one thing that I hope you can promise me. Lin Feng nodded. What's the matter? King Songya said, I won't beat around the bush. I want you to give me all of the quota of Tranquil Heart Lake in the first year. The quota of Tranquil Heart Lake in the first year? Lin Feng was slightly stunned. He looked at his second brother, Shi Dingshan. It's like this, seventh brother. The clan leader has reserved the time of the next round of Tranquil Heart Lake for you. It's a full year for the first year, Shi Dingshan said. Wow, Lin Feng's eyes lit up. A full year's quota of Tranquil Heart Lake time. To him, this was even better than an outstanding cardinal treasure. The clan leader had given him a quota of 600 days for Tranquil Heart Lake. In addition to the 100 days that he would get next year, as well as the remaining time that he won from Qi Hong, he had a total of 840 days. However, each round of Tranquil Heart Lake time was limited. There was a total of 10 years, 3,650 days. He couldn't take 840 days alone. The 9-star, 8-star, 7-star experts, and even those below 7-star had to use Tranquil Heart Lake. Basically, the quota was divided into 4 equal parts. The 9-star experts would get about 900 days. If he took 365 days alone, the other 9-star experts would have less time. Seventh brother, You have just broken through and don't need to use Tranquil Heart Lake. What you should do now is to strike while the iron is hot and stabilize your strength. Song Ye's eyes were like torches. He said in a deep voice, I will use this year's quota first. It's decided then. Lin Feng frowned. Even Shi Dingshan sighed in his heart and felt helpless. His fourth brother, Song Ye, was a straightforward person with a fiery temper. He didn't care about anyone and offended people easily. Don't mind him, seventh brother. Fourth brother's temper is like that. He says whatever he wants. That's not what he meant. Shi Dingshan quickly tried to smooth things over. I'm telling the truth. Song Ye's voice was cold. He looked at Lin Feng and raised his head slightly. Don't think that you can be arrogant just because you defeated Qi Hong. The path of an expert is not to be arrogant. You have just entered the 9-star level and should cultivate step by step. I know you are a genius. However, those who can reach the 9-star level are not fools. Your strength is still far from sixth brother's. Stabilize your realm and don't be a burden to us when we enter the void turbulence. Lin Feng's expression gradually turned cold. This kind of bossy and overbearing attitude was what he hated the most. It was obvious that fourth brother Song Ye was still a little dissatisfied with him. Or rather, he didn't feel comfortable. After all, Jiang Yi had defeated Qi Hong that day. Qi Hong didn't say anything, but Jiang Yi had indeed embarrassed him. Right now, he wanted to get back at Qi Hong. However, it wasn't Jiang Yi who had provoked Qi Hong that day. Qi Hong had provoked him on purpose. Jiang Yi couldn't do it without retaliating when he was beaten or scolded. Song Ye was straightforward, but Jiang Yi was even more straightforward. If Song Ye had talked nicely and discussed with him about exchanging the quota for Tranquil Heart Lake, Jiang Yi wouldn't have taken all of it. Even if he couldn't get a year, he could get half a year. But now, I'm sorry, fourth brother. Since it is my time quota for Tranquil Heart Lake, I will make the decision myself. Lin Feng smiled and looked at Song Ye. He didn't care about the fierce look in Song Ye's eyes. This 1 year's time quota, I won't change it for even a day. Chapter 1969. His voice was sonorous, and the entire hall fell silent. Shi Dingshan raised his eyebrows and looked up to avoid their aggressive gazes. It was too late for him to be a peacemaker now. He could hear the hostility in Song Ye's voice. Although he said he didn't mind, he was actually very unhappy with Lin Feng for not giving him face earlier. Lin Feng was also a tough nut to crack. He was amenable to coaxing but not coercion. Shi Dingshan knew Lin Feng's temper from the beginning. What a joke! Would someone who could go against the Destiny tribe be the type to admit defeat? Even if he died, he believed that Lin Feng wouldn't lower his head. However, Song Ye was the same. Which genius didn't have a temper? The more extreme a genius was, the more confident they were. Very good. Very few people dare to talk to me like this. Song Ye laughed instead of getting angry, but the ferocity in his eyes was undisguised. What an arrogant genius! The patriarch has really misjudged you this time. Is such a self-centered so-called genius really useful to our race? Song Ye shook his head coldly, looking disappointed. Lin Feng smiled. Fourth brother, don't judge others based on your way of thinking. You are you, and I am me. Your standards don't mean they are correct, and mine don't mean they are wrong. Moreover, do you think your vision is better than the patriarch's? It seems that you were also discovered by the patriarch back then, right? Lin Feng didn't care about the battle of words at all. Song Ye's expression was slightly ugly, but he couldn't refute. He could only sneer. It seems that seventh brother is not only talented, but also eloquent. Very good. As your fourth brother, I will wait and see if seventh brother is really strong or just an empty reputation. There was anger in his words, and it was difficult for him to control his temper. Song Ye couldn't remember when he had been contradicted like this. Whether I am strong or not, why don't you test it yourself, fourth brother? Lin Feng maintained his smile, but the fighting spirit in his eyes was undisguised. Bang! There was a sudden clap of thunder. As soon as he said this, even Shi Dingshan, who had been uninvolved, changed his expression. Don't be reckless, seventh brother. Ha ha. Ha 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 ha. It was as if Sangya had just heard the funniest joke in the world. His eyes were filled with contempt as he laughed. Do you know who I am? I am Sangya. Outside the clan, everyone calls me King Lu Tsang. Do you know where this nickname came from? It's battle. It's a name that I, Sangya, have forged through bloody massacres. I am ranked 39th on the Origin Awakening list. You want to challenge me? His words were filled with arrogance. Sangya naturally disdained to fight with Lin Feng. Who was he? A newbie who had just entered the 9-star realm dared to challenge him? Overconfident. His imposing aura fully displayed the arrogance and demeanor of an expert, just like an overlord. However, Lin Feng remained indifferent. I formally challenge you. Fourth brother, do you accept? Lin Feng looked at Sangya, not concealing his battle intent at all. After his strength had increased, he really wanted to know what level his strength was at in the 9-star realm. He could be stronger than 6th brother Suin, stronger than 5th sister Luing, but could he be stronger than 4th brother Sangya? Lin Feng really wanted to know. He was not afraid of losing. Even if he lost, he could benefit greatly from it. 4th brother Sangya was proficient in battle and forged his reputation through massacres. He was absolutely the best opponent to spar with. If he could win this battle, there would be hundreds of advantages and no disadvantages for him. Swords drawn and bows bent. Shi Dingshan was sandwiched in the middle, his face filled with helplessness. He wanted to persuade them to make peace, but the problem was that these two stubborn rocks could not be persuaded at all. At present, he could finally see that Lin Feng and Sangya were already at odds with each other, not giving in to each other. If they did not fight with real swords and spears, this grudge would probably be hard to resolve. However, regarding Lin Feng taking the initiative to challenge Sangya, Shi Dingshan still did not understand. In a moment of anger? From what he knew, Lin Feng was clearly not an impulsive person. Could it be that his strength was already able to defeat Sangya? That was even more impossible. Even if 5th sister Lu Ying and 6th brother Suin teamed up, they would not beat Sangya's opponent. Ranked 39th on the Origin Awakening list, Sangya King did not have an undeserved reputation. He was even stronger than Wu Yirai, who had beaten Lin Feng into a sorry state. Are you sure you want to challenge me? Sangya stared straight at Lin Feng. After a long time, he suddenly revealed a cold smile. Yes. Lin Feng nodded. Sangya coldly said, It is not impossible for me to agree to your challenge. We will wager the first year's quota for the next round of Tranquil Heart Lake. Lin Feng was slightly surprised. Exchange. Sangya coldly said, What, when you won against my disciple, you took it without hesitation, but now you want to exchange it with me? Lin Feng suddenly understood. So, 4th brother Sangya wanted to take the 365-day quota without shedding a drop of blood? Every 10 years, 9-star experts would be given a 100-day quota for Tranquil Heart Lake. Thus, a 365-day quota for Tranquil Heart Lake was already a lot. You don't dare. Sangya provoked. This is a bit too much, 4th brother. Shi Dingshan frowned and tried to dissuade him. Sangya glanced at Shi Dingshan and coldly said, Since he wants to challenge me, he should be mentally prepared. I did not ask for his outstanding treasure, only the quota for Tranquil Heart Lake. To him, 365 days is not a lot. If he wants to overestimate himself and be arrogant, that is fine. I will make him pay the price. But Shi Dingshan still wanted to persuade Sangya. Second brother, this is between me and him. Sangya stared straight at Shi Dingshan. If he thinks it is not suitable, he can just reject it. What kind of person am I? Sangya would force a little guy. Lin Feng smiled. Did I say I would reject it? Seventh brother. Shi Dingshan was shocked and hastily said. Was he really going to accept it? Song Ya's strength was not something Qi Hong's could compare to. Song Ya was quite surprised. You have some guts. So you agree? Lin Feng laughed involuntarily. How can I agree? Fourth brother, it is not good for you to gain something without risking anything. You want me to give you a year's quota for Tranquil Heart Lake. What about you? Same for a year, and I will give it to you immediately. Song Ya waved his hand and looked straight at Lin Feng. Not only that, if you can beat me, I will also give you my precious Cloudy Heaven crystal. Its value is equivalent to an outstanding treasure. That is not taking advantage of you, right? Lin Feng nodded. Good, then it is decided. Second brother will be the witness. Is that okay? Song Ya looked at Shi Dingshan, who sighed softly and helplessly. He was also riding a tiger and could not get off. I can't persuade you. If that is the case, then so be it. It is not a bad thing to spar. Shi Dingshan smiled bitterly and glanced at Song Ya and Lin Feng. The time will be 1 year later, on the last day of Tranquil Heart Lake. What do you think? No problem. Good. Lin Feng and Song Ya looked at each other, their battle intent surging. 1 year later, they would fight to see who was stronger. Chapter 1970. After Song Ya left, only Lin Feng and Shi Dingshan were left in the hall. Seventh brother, tell me honestly, are you sure you can defeat Song Ya? Shi Dingshan asked curiously. No. Lin Feng smiled. Shi Dingshan sighed helplessly. Then why are you so impulsive? I know fourth brother best. He will never show you any mercy. You will suffer a double loss. Why bother? Well, let me handle this. I will help you talk to fourth brother. Maybe there will be room for negotiation. Lin Feng's heart warmed and he said, There's no need for that, second brother. A real man keeps his word. It's just a spar. Even if we lose, the quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake will be given to our own people, right? Shi Dingshan said thoughtfully, That's true. Second brother, if you really want to help me, can you arrange more places for me to practice in Ningxin Lake in the remaining year? Lin Feng asked. Well, Shi Dingshan frowned. The last year is mostly for 7-star and below warriors. It is short and intensive. It is difficult to arrange. I will check later. Okay, thank you, brother Shi, Lin Feng said. Shi Dingshan nodded. He wanted to say something but didn't know what to say. He could only sigh in his heart. Geniuses were indeed eccentric. Dongwang Palace. A sword was flying. A figure full of sword will appeared. His sword technique was like a rainbow. 1 year later, you will fight with Song Ya? Dongwang's eyes flashed and he smiled faintly. I knew it. This little guy still has some hidden cards. Total proficiency of saber, 80% realm. It may be possible to defeat fifth sister Luing. But to defeat Song Ya, boom, boom, boom. The purple sword suddenly burst out. The sword will in the whole Dongwang Palace was extremely wild. Let me see how strong you are. Dongwang's sword will was soaring. Boundless power suddenly burst out. It was vast and surging. It was domineering. As the turbulent void was about to open, he was also fully awakened. Challenge fourth brother? Su En's eyes widened and he was speechless for a long time. He shook his head and muttered to himself, This Lin Feng is really fearless. He even dares to challenge fourth brother. Wait, that's not right. He doesn't seem like a reckless and impulsive person. Since he dared to challenge fourth brother and even made a bet, there's no reason for him not to have any confidence. No matter how bad it is, he must have some tricks up his sleeve. So, he's stronger than me now? Thinking of this, Su-en immediately jumped out of the tranquil heart pool, allowing the water droplets to drip down. He was shocked. If it were him, he probably wouldn't even have the courage to challenge fourth brother. This was impossible. He clearly just stepped into the 9-star realm. It's impossible for him to surpass me. Impossible! Suan widened his eyes in shock. Not only Suan, but Firefly King and Enigma also received the news. This was not a secret in the first place. 1 spread to 10, 10 spread to 100, and the news soon spread throughout the entire race. It was a confrontation between two 9-star experts. It was rare even in the entire Origin Awakening continent. This was especially so since both sides had their own unique trait. One of them was Tsangya, who was known as the Plum Slayer King, who had emerged victorious in every battle. The other was Lin Feng, a super rookie who had unbelievably stepped into the 9-star level. It was too eye-catching. I heard that this isn't an ordinary duel. You guys definitely don't know. They bet an entire year's quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake. Oh my god, an entire year! It's true. Chi Hong even specially asked Sangya about it, and Sangya didn't deny it. Amazing, an entire year's quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake. This is a huge sum. Even a 9-star expert would need to save up for 40 years to get it. Lord Lin Feng is really daring. It's fine if he just bet with Chi Hong, but that's Tsangya. I've never heard of Tsangya losing even once. Even if the Vice Patriarch's ranking is higher than Tsangya's on the Origin Awakening list, he might not necessarily win. Of course, Tsangya is the most proficient in combat and has stepped into the 9-star realm for countless eras. Lord Lin Feng has just stepped into the 9-star realm. How could he be a match for Tsangya? Lord Lin Feng didn't give face to Tsangya and taught Chi Hong a lesson. In the end, Master came to stand up for him. Everyone was in a heated discussion. They were looking forward to this duel a year later. It was rare to see a battle between 9-star experts. Moreover, this wasn't just an ordinary duel. It was definitely a real duel for the Tranquil Heart Lake quota. At this moment, Lin Feng had already started cultivating at the Tranquil Heart Lake. He had originally set 2 cultivation periods for this year. One was 25 days and the other was 15 days. In Shi Dingshan's opinion, it was too short and wasn't suitable for comprehension. However, to Lin Feng it was enough. Although it took him a little longer to enter the state, Lin Feng had already comprehended the bottleneck of the radiant divine Tao to perfection in less than a day. On the 7th day, the Tao of Light Halo had reached perfection. On the 13th day, the Tao of Light had reached perfection. On the 25th day, I have finally comprehended it to perfection. Lin Feng let out a long breath and ended his cultivation. Before the 25-day deadline was about to end, he had also comprehended the Tao of Light to perfection. This is faster than expected. Lin Feng opened his eyes and was very satisfied. Overall, his comprehension speed was much faster than the first time he entered. Among the 6 Tao of Light, the Tao of Light and the Tao of Light had the best aptitude, followed by the Tao of Light and the Tao of Light, followed by the Tao of Light and the Tao of Radiance. This time, his comprehension of the Tao of Light and the Tao of Light was much faster than the Tao of Light and the Tao of Light. This was because his life force level had increased. This was because his bloodline had reached perfection and he was stronger. He didn't even think about the duel a year later. It didn't matter if he won or lost. He just wanted to do his best. In the next 15 days, I will be able to comprehend the 6 Tao of Light to perfection. Although he had asked his second brother, Shi Dingshan, to help him see if the Tranquil Heart Lake quota could be changed, Lin Feng knew that the possibility was very low. The Tranquil Heart Lake quota was basically divided into 4 equal parts. Although the quota time wasn't fixed, the last year was usually reserved for 7-star and below martial artists to cultivate and comprehend. Even if they were allowed to give up temporarily, it would be 1, 2, or 3 days. This was a step-by-step process. Cultivation required time to get into the right state. Intermittent cultivation wasn't good. 15 days is enough. Although I can't comprehend the Tao of Darkness to perfection, the 6 Tao of Light have reached perfection. With the help of the 3rd stage of the Divine Pattern of Light, with the previous experience of fusion, I can try to fuse them at the perfection stage. Lin Feng jumped out of the tranquil heart lake. Although there was still half an hour, he didn't need it anymore. There are still 15 days left in half a year. In this half a year, I will focus on practicing my saber skills and master the universal sky-covering saber. At the very least, the third move should be as pure as fire. Lin Feng nodded. Although the possibility of defeating Tsangya wasn't high, he would definitely do his best. Chapter 1971. Leaving Tranquil Heart Lake. Outside, the second brother, Shi Dingshan, stood with his hands behind his back, as if he was already waiting. Brother Shi, Lin Feng greeted him with a smile. Looks like you've gained a lot. Shi Dingshan laughed heartily and patted Lin Feng's shoulder. Lin Feng nodded. Of the 6 paths of light, he had comprehended 5 of them. Adding the path of Dark Demon, he had a total of 6 paths of great perfection. Even among the 9-star experts, he was considered outstanding. However, most 9-star experts wouldn't comprehend so many paths of great perfection because they weren't very useful and their strength was limited. In addition, their aptitudes varied. They might have excellent aptitudes for the path of light, average aptitudes for the path of light, and poor aptitudes for the path of light. There were too many such examples. Most 9-star experts would choose to strengthen 1 or 2 of them and supplement it with excellent treasures to increase their realm power. You've just entered the 9-star level, so Tranquil Heart Lake will be of great help to you. Shi Dingshan said, Fourth brother is on the path of complete integration of the laws of Earth, so he has a great need for Tranquil Heart Lake. So, don't take it to heart. Lin Feng smiled. I understand, Brother Shi. Shi Dingshan nodded and frowned slightly. The quota for this year's Tranquil Heart Lake has been set long ago, and it's almost the end, so it's hard to change it. Although there are a few sporadic days, I don't think you need it. Lin Feng nodded. Sorry to trouble you, Brother Shi. Shi Dingshan smiled. It's my duty. By the way, 5th sister came to me. She transferred next year's quota to you. Lin Feng was surprised. Shi Dingshan said, For the next 10 years, the quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake was originally yours for the first year, the first half of the second year would be given to 5th sister, and the latter half would be given to me and Enigma. After a discussion, we decided to transfer all of it to you. Lin Feng quickly understood. Brother Shi and the others must have guessed that he would lose, so they gathered this year's quota for him. After all, each person's quota for the Calming Heart Lake was limited every 10 years. For example, he had already obtained a year's quota, but if he lost it, it would mean that there was no more, even if he still had a lot of time left. Brother Shi, 5th sister, and the others were all like this. If they gave it to him, it meant that they would be using their own quota. If he wanted to enter the Tranquil Heart Lake, he would have to wait 10 years. Don't look at me like that. Shi Dingshan chuckled and said, You are different from us. You have just entered the 9-star level, so you need the Tranquil Heart Lake to strengthen your strength. Enigma, 5th sister, and I have been cultivating for countless eras. 10 years later won't delay anything. Thank you so much, Brother Shi. Please also thank Sister San and Sister Wu for me. Lin Feng was touched. There's no need to thank me. This is an exchange, and I have to return it. I'm not giving it to you for free. Shi Dingshan pretended to glare. Of course. Lin Feng smiled. Half a year flew by. Lin Feng had perfected the second move of the myriad obscuring heavenly saber, Tears of Troubled Times. He had comprehended more than half of the third move, Mandarin Duck. As for the fourth move, Boundless Weight, although he wanted to, he did not touch upon it. After all, his saber's omnipotence realm had only reached 80%. At 80% of the realm, it was easy to cultivate the second move, Tears of Troubled Times, which only required 40% of the realm. The third move, Mandarin Ducks, which required 60% of the realm, was also average. However, it would be difficult to cultivate the fourth move, Boundless Weight, which required 80% of the realm. Of course, this so-called difficulty was only a matter of time. Compared to saber moves, comprehension of the realm was the truly difficult part. When one's realm was sufficient and there were ready-made saber moves to learn, comprehension would be much easier. However, the myriad obscuring heavenly saber was not an ordinary saber move after all. Even with the 100,000 times time cultivation array, Lin Feng had spent 50,000 years, which was equivalent to half a year in the outside world, but he still could not truly comprehend the true essence of the third move, Mandarin Ducks. It's enough to unleash 80% of its power. Furthermore, Mandarin Ducks emphasizes more on the combination of light and darkness. It's much more complicated than Tears of Troubled Times. Lin Feng knew that his greatest weakness was fusion. The fusion of light and darkness was too difficult. Even with a complete bloodline, the black vortex was still difficult. Therefore, he was in a rush to cultivate the mystic technique, Myriad Heaven Tao. As long as I cultivate the first volume, the fusion power will increase by a large margin. Lin Feng was not in a hurry. Even if his strength was inferior to Tsang Ye's, as long as he cultivated the first volume of the Myriad Heaven Tao, his strength would immediately soar. When that happened, he was confident that he could surpass Tsang Ye. It's about time. I should head to Tranquil Heart Lake. Lin Feng put away the Eclipse Mystic Civ Saber and turned to leave. The 15-day quota for Tranquil Heart Lake was very short. Lin Feng spent 2 full days just to enter a perfect state. After all, he had been practicing the Myriad Heaven Saber for the past half a year. To be precise, it was 50,000 years. It was not easy to immediately change from a saber practice state to a nomological insight state. Even if he forcefully entered, his insights would more or less be obstructed and he would not be able to unleash 100%. However, 15 days was enough. While Lin Feng was immersed in the endless radiance, he was nearing the end of his nomological insight. Bit by bit, the nomological ocean turned into one as he looked down from above. Suddenly, there was a flash of inspiration as Lin Feng revealed a smile. His entire body was immersed in the nomological ocean. Every cell in his body was filled with joy. Clear nomological Tao was imprinted in his mind as he absorbed the endless light energy. Hua, the radiance was dazzling. Finally, I've comprehended it. Lin Feng's lips curled into a smile. Although his Tao of Light was not as good as the Tao of Light and Tao of Light, he had the foundation of the first 5 great Tao of Light. After spending 12 days, he had reached the level of great perfection. He was in high spirits as the power of the nomological laws was imbued into his body. The divine patterns became more perfect and complex, as though they were connected into a line, forming a beautiful picture scroll. It was much better than the demonic patterns. As his life's level increased, his strength foundation subconsciously improved. He had comprehended all 6 Tao of Light to great perfection. Pung, pung, pung. Lin Feng's heartbeat sped up. Endless power of laws fell from the sky like a meteor shower into calming Heart Lake, all of which gathered in his body. He felt as if he had been enlightened, and his entire body was bathed in the law of light. It was incomparably comfortable and joyful. The third stage of the divine pattern of light excitedly absorbed the pure nomological power. Even the color of the divine pattern changed slightly. It was brighter and more profound. On his forehead, the mark of light shone as though it was pressed into his brain. It was very eye-catching. Inside his body, Hua, the nomological power, along with the mark of light, was imprinted on every cell, every piece of skin, and every piece of bone. It left a mark of light as though they were assimilated by the origin of light. His entire body was like a brand new person, completely transformed. So this is the path that 4th brother Tsang Ye wants to take, the path of the fusion of the 6 Tao of origin? Lin Feng smiled. Chapter 1972. Unintentionally planting a willow, the willow grows a shade. Lin Feng had not thought of developing in this direction in the beginning and had not deliberately studied it. To him, this was just one of the steps in cultivating the Thousand Heaven Path. It turned out that after comprehending all 6 branches of the great Tao of origin to perfection, such a change would occur. Every part of his body would be fused with the mark of light, as though he had become the embodiment of light. His comprehension of the origin of light was extremely clear. Lin Feng opened his hand and a ball of light was formed almost instantly. He clenched his hand and compressed it into a powerful ball of light. He could control it with ease. This was the origin of light. The acquisition, control, and tolerance of the origin of light have all increased greatly. Lin Feng sighed. At least 10 times. Even his divine pattern of light bloodline seemed to have undergone a significant change. As a result, the fusion of the 6 paths of light, which he had estimated would be difficult, became easy. Very easy. Lin Feng's control of light had reached a whole new level. Swoosh. He closed his eyes and his consciousness easily entered the sea of origin of light. He did not need the tranquil heart lake to immerse himself in it. In the tranquil heart lake, his comprehension was more than 10 times clearer than before. The boundless origin of light was within reach. If Lin Feng wanted to create some secret techniques, it would be easy. However, there was no need for that. This is a change in the structure of life. Therefore, I am extremely close to the origin of light and can easily control it. So this is what it is like to comprehend all 6 paths of light to perfection. Lin Feng did not expect that this change would greatly increase his strength. The only troublesome thing was that as his bloodline of light sublimated and his body changed, his comprehension of darkness decreased. One happy and one sad. It is not that my comprehension of darkness decreased. It is just that my comprehension of light is too strong. Moreover, the mark of light is embedded in every cell of my body. Light and darkness repel each other. Therefore, the repel is even stronger. Or rather, it is natural suppression. Lin Feng was helpless. His killer move was the fusion of light and darkness. However, in this way, he would not be able to unleash its full power in the battle with Sangya half a year later. After all, darkness would be suppressed too much. Fortunately, it's only temporary. Lin Feng didn't mind. His talent in the 6 paths of darkness was not inferior to the 6 paths of light. After the next quota for the Tranquil Heart Lake, he would have a full year to comprehend the 6 paths of darkness and obtain the law of darkness origin. His consciousness would step into the sea of origin law and the mark of darkness would be integrated into his body. He just didn't know if both the mark of light and the mark of darkness were imprinted into the cells at the same time, would the body be able to withstand it? Ancestor Wangan was able to withstand it. There's no reason why I can't. Lin Feng thought to himself. With Ancestor Wan Qian's strength, it was too easy for him to comprehend all 12 great Tao laws. Otherwise, he would not have created the secret technique, Wan Qian Dao. His comprehension of the light and darkness Daos had long since reached the limit. We'll cross that bridge when we get there. Lin Feng was also carefree. There's still half a year. Prepare well for the battle with Fourth Brother. Even if I lose, I will go all out and unleash my strongest combat strength. Lin Feng would not admit defeat just like that. Everything depended on human effort. After Lin Feng came out of Calming Heart Lake, he entered seclusion to comprehend the great Tao of light. The fusion of the 6 great Tao of light gave him a new cultivation system and direction. With the myriad obscuring heavenly blade, his strength steadily increased. Inside the 100,000 times time cultivation array, half a year was equivalent to 50,000 years. With the myriad origin mustard stone, Lin Feng could completely withstand the tremendous pressure that the flow of time brought to his soul. Although the cultivation conditions inside the time cultivation array were poor and it was difficult to use it to comprehend the laws, it was best to use it to improve his realm. This included the fusion of the 6 great Tao of light. This included the use of an outstanding treasure. Brahma, haha. Lin Feng laughed heartily. This outstanding treasure's name is exaggerated. Otherwise, it would not have been given to me directly. Back then, Brahma had been given to him by the patriarch as a greeting gift. Of the 3 abilities, only the basic ability, Brahma domain, could be used. The advanced ability, Brahma's wrath, required one to be proficient in the spatial law, strangulation. As for the ultimate ability, Great Brahma, there was no need to mention it. One had to know that the spatial law, strangulation, was already considered an extremely advanced spatial law. It was an extremely powerful law attack. In the entire Origin Awakening continent, the number of experts who had comprehended the law of space, strangulation, could be counted on one hand. Moreover, all of them were major figures who were awe-inspiring in their respective regions. Therefore, although this superior true treasure, Nirvana domain, seemed pretty good, it was actually only a high-grade elite true treasure at best. But now, a perfect combination. If I can master Brahma's wrath, combined with the power of the warm wings, I will have some hope of fighting Fourth Brother. There is still time. When one had a goal, one would often be forced to unleash their greatest potential. For example, the cultivation at Calming Heart Lake had a time limit. The closer to the end of the time limit, the more profound and faster Lin Feng would be able to comprehend. This was why he could comprehend all 6 great Daos of light in a short 40 days. Right now, Fourth Brother, Sangye, was standing in front of him. This allowed Lin Feng's potential to be fully unleashed. 50,000 years of bitter cultivation. The fusion of the 6 great Daos of light, the practice of the myriad obscurity heavenly blade, the control of an outstanding true treasure. Lin Feng improved himself one by one, including the heaven and earth fruit. He was not in a hurry to exchange for some rare heaven and earth fruits at the contribution pagoda. After all, his body needed time to absorb them. Moreover, at the 9-star level, physical strength was secondary. What was more important was the level of one's realm. Half a year passed in the blink of an eye. Huff! Lin Feng, who had his eyes closed, stood up. All his essence, energy, and spirit merged into his body. He was like a treasured saber in its scabbard. Once it was unsheathed, it would shock the world. Unfortunately, there is not enough time. Give me another year, and I am 60% confident that I can defeat Fourth Brother. Give me another 3 years, and I am 80% confident that I can defeat Fourth Brother. Give me another 10 years, and I am 100% confident. Lin Feng's eyes were filled with confidence. Although he only had a 30% chance of winning, it was much higher than what he had expected. Before he started cultivating, Lin Feng had estimated that his chances of winning were no more than 10%. Although the difference was only 20%, it was a world of difference. One represented a huge gap and an irresistible force. The other represented a chance. Although there was a gap in strength, it was still within reach. The most important thing was, putting aside this exchange of pointers, Lin Feng had a clear understanding of his future strength. 10 years later, he would truly stabilize his strength and realm at the 9-star level. At that time, his battle strength would surpass Sangye's. Although it is only 30%. Fourth Brother, it won't be that easy to defeat me. Lin Feng's lips curled up slightly as he left the mansion. He would do his best. Chapter 1973. There was a sea of people. The Ningxin battle arena had never been so lively. It was packed with people. Many of the clansmen had come a few days ago just to get a good spot. The clansmen who came late all sighed and frowned, but the further away they were, the less they saw. A 9-star battle. For this reason, the Vice-Patriarch, Shi Dingshan, called in the experts guarding the 18 gold amplification array to maintain the small 18 gold amplification array. Although it couldn't really withstand the crazy attacks of 9-star experts, as long as the attacks weren't aimed at the small 18 gold amplification array, it was fine. Except for a few who had important matters to attend to, the rest of the clan members were all here. This was a once-in-a-lifetime battle. Since Songye became a 9-star expert, he hadn't been on the Ningxin battleground. The 9-star experts were ranked according to the Origin Awakening list, so it was very fair. Moreover, to a 9-star powerhouse, the ranking of the Tranquil Heart Pool was merely a name. "Look, Songye King is here." Suddenly, a cry of surprise rang out from the crowd. In an instant, everyone's gazes focused on Songye's body that resembled an ancient, ferocious beast descended. He was clad in the outstanding Supreme Treasure armor, the One armor, and his tiger eyes surged with a bright light. What a powerful aura! It's so far away that I can't even breathe. It's too scary. I'm afraid I'll be crushed to pieces at such a close distance. It's been too long. Songye King has been silent for too long and hasn't made a move. Now even a newcomer dares to challenge his authority. We can use this opportunity to rebuild our reputation and let them know that our ancestors are actually very strong. However, Lord Lin Feng is also outstanding. There has never been a newcomer who could break through to 9 stars in such a short period of time. Such talent is as rare as phoenix feathers and Qilin horns in the entire Origin Awakening continent. It is said that even the Patriarch is inferior to him. So what? No matter how strong Lord Lin Feng is, he's just talented. Maybe after a few eras or a few decades, he'll be able to compete with Songye King. But right now, Songye King will definitely win. That's right. I support Songye King. More than 99% of the people in the crowd were experts from the ancestral bloodline. The population of the Milky Way bloodline was very small, but things were different now. Lin Feng had reached the 9-star level and became the pride of the race. Although the people of the Milky Way bloodline supported the vast Horizon King, they did not have any ill feelings towards Lin Feng. Every 9-star expert was the symbol of the tribe. They also worshipped Lin Feng, especially those young children and youths who yearned to become strong. To them, Lin Feng was closer to them, and his age was closer as well. It was as if he was beside them. However, in this battle, they still supported the vast Horizon King. Look, Lin Feng is here too. Not long after King Songye arrived, Lin Feng arrived as well. He naturally wouldn't be late for such an important duel. He appeared in a carefree manner, flying past like a streak of light. Lin Feng steadily descended onto the combat arena like a shooting star that swiftly fell into the ocean, yet he stopped at the exact same instant without even causing a trace of a ripple. His control over his strength had already arrived at an incomparably perfect state. His aura was faint and contained, just like an ordinary person. Lock screen with a single button. Lock screen with a single button. It was completely different from King Songye's domineering aura. Lord Lin Feng feels so friendly. Yeah, he's just like an ordinary person. I can't feel his aura at all. But it seems a little weak. Look at King Songye's aura. It's like a huge cage that's imprisoning Lord Lin Feng. What do you know? This is called using 4 tails to overcome 1,000 caddies. Moreover, aura is only useful for the strong to deal with the weak. It's useless in a real battle between the strong. Don't you see Lord Lin Feng's figure is like a pine tree, and his expression is normal? That's true. It's too exciting. The battle hasn't even started, and there are already so many hidden battles. I wonder who will win. There's no suspense as to who will win. Lord Lin Feng can't possibly be King Songye's opponent. The only thing to watch is how long Lord Lin Feng can last against King Songye. The public opinion was one-sided. Even if the clansmen of the Milky Way bloodline hoped that Lin Feng could win, they knew that the possibility was very small. That was because Lin Feng was going to face a super expert who had been famous for a long time and was ranked 39th on the Origin Awakening list, King Sangya. This was a battle without any suspense. At least, that was the case in the hearts of the clansmen. King Sangya and Lin Feng had arrived relatively early. They had to adapt to the atmosphere, accumulate their fighting spirit, and improve their condition. Even if King Sangya didn't think that Lin Feng could pose any threat to him, he was meticulous and went all out. Not only did he want to win, he wanted to win beautifully. Although I haven't transformed into a body of laws, it's not difficult for me to win against a newcomer who has just stepped into the 9-star realm. King Sangya was actually somewhat jealous of Lin Feng in his heart. He had stepped into the 9-star realm step by step, going through countless life-and-death battles. The dangers he faced were incomprehensible. On the other hand, Lin Feng had easily become a 9-star expert. He hadn't even faced any bottleneck. This difference made King Sangya very uncomfortable. He also wished that he was such a monstrous genius. However, his bloodline talent was already destined. It was too difficult to go against the heavens and change one's fate. In terms of talent, I might not be as good as you. Perhaps one day you will surpass me, but today, I will definitely defeat you. King Sangya's eyes were burning with flames, and his fighting spirit was high. There was no reason for him to lose this battle. Whoosh, whoosh, whoosh. Several figures came together, bringing with them a huge aura as if gods had descended. Even if they deliberately restrained their aura, it was still several times more powerful than when King Sangya arrived. The figure in the lead was resolute and firm, like a huge rock mountain. His whole person was like the incarnation of the earth. Shi Dingshan. Half a step away from Shi Dingshan was the cultured and elegant mystery, who wore a simple dress and looked decent. At the end of the line were Lu Ying and Suan, one on the left and one on the right. The arrival of the 4 9-star experts instantly caused the atmosphere to reach a climax. The clansmen hurriedly saluted. Deputy Patriarch! Deputy Patriarch! Shi Dingshan and Mystery, who were in the lead, nodded slightly and raised their hands to signal the clansmen to stand up. Today we are just like you. We are just ordinary spectators. The clansmen were stunned. What did that mean? Lin Feng suddenly opened his eyes and looked into the distance. He only saw the sound of something breaking through the air, and a figure standing on a purple treasured sword had already stopped in the air. He was dressed in black martial clothes and had his hands behind his back. He looked like an ordinary person, but his appearance caused the entire space to freeze. Boundless sword essence spread out spontaneously, as if he was the incarnation of the sword. Patriarch! Patriarch! Greetings, Patriarch! The clansmen were all shocked. They didn't expect that Patriarch Donghuang would come in person. Many of them had never even seen Patriarch Donghuang since they were born. Today's battle will be judged by me, Patriarch Donghuang said indifferently. Chapter 1974. This was the first time. Patriarch Donghuang was the arbiter. Even Lin Feng and Lord Kanjia were stunned. They didn't expect that even Patriarch Donghuang would be alarmed by their competition. Patriarch Donghuang had been in seclusion for a long time and almost ignored the world. Today's battle is just an ordinary competition. No matter what the result is, don't hold grudges. Donghuang said, "We are all brothers. Let's not make a bet. Don't let the clansmen laugh at us." "Yes, brother," Lin Feng and Lord Kanjia answered. Lord Kanjia was a little unwilling, but he didn't dare to disobey Patriarch Donghuang. After all, he was almost certain to win this competition, which was equivalent to cutting off his benefits. Donghuang said, "As for the quota of Tranquil Lake for this year, I will pay for it as well as 200,000 contribution points. So, don't think that you can do whatever you want without a bet. As long as you step into the arena, you must go all out." Lin Feng was secretly impressed. Patriarch Dongwang had settled the battle with just a few words, and there was no loss to him or Tsangya. He was indeed the patriarch of the clan. On the other side, Shi Dingshan and Mystery smiled knowingly. As deputy patriarchs, they didn't want to see Lin Feng and Tsangya fall out. After all, one had unlimited potential, and the other was the strongest in the clan. It was like a fish and a bear's paw. So, it was best to leave this matter to the patriarch. They knew Tsangya's temperament well. If the two of them came out, they might not be able to suppress this beast. Fortunately, seventh brother's loss is not big. Lu Ying sighed softly and was relieved. Patriarch still favors seventh brother. Su sighed and looked at Lin Feng with envy. This is obviously to help seventh brother. After all, for fourth brother, it's the same. It's just that Patriarch Dongwang pays the price. Lu Ying said, but for Patriarch Dongwang, whether fourth brother or seventh brother is strong, the clan is strong. Suan nodded. Actually, I still prefer the previous bet. Just as fourth brother said, seventh brother has been rising too quickly and is getting complacent. It is necessary to teach him a lesson. Lu Ying gently nodded. Seventh brother was a little reckless this time. Impulsive. Reckless. He was overestimating himself. Arrogant. This year, following Lin Feng's challenge to Tsangya, it had been mentioned countless times. Naturally, no one would openly criticize a 9-star powerhouse, but they still secretly criticized Lin Feng. After all, King Tsangya was the pride of his ancestors. The #1 fighting force against the outside world. For the sake of his race, Lord Tsangya had made a lot of contributions and made a name for the human tribe of the Milky Way. Everyone wanted Vast Horizon King to win. Moreover, everyone believed that King Tsangya would win. Including Dongwang, the patriarch. Therefore, Dongwang stepped forward to help Lin Feng. He knew very well that Lord Kanjia was the current leader of the human tribe in the Milky Way, but this young man in front of him, Lin Feng, it was the future of the Milky Way's human race. Are you ready? Dongwang glanced at them. Whoosh, whoosh. On both sides of the arena, Lin Feng and Tsangya were full of fighting spirit. There was no need for more words. Their actions spoke for themselves. Dongwang nodded and said, "Don't go too far. Begin." 2 words that were as heavy as thunder broke the silence. The battle began in an instant. Tsangya let out a roar, and his superior true treasure armor, the armor of one, burst forth with boundless power. The law of earth was released, and it enveloped the entire battle arena. Behind Tsangya, an ancient ferocious beast, the One, suddenly appeared. It had the body of an elephant, the horns of a bull, the tail of a dragon, 8 arms, and 3 pairs of eyes. It was born to be the embodiment of the earth. It was extremely terrifying. Tsangya could now use the armor of one to 100% of its power. Just by activating the true body of One, the ancient beast, he could rival a 9-star powerhouse. One was born to control the earth, which was comparable to a domain-type excellent true treasure. In addition, Wen's true body could enhance Tsangya's combat power greatly. Almost at the same time, Lin Feng's Brahma domain unfolded. As a space-type superior treasure, the Brahma domain was no weaker than the One domain. In fact, it was even stronger. However, at this moment, the Brahma domain was clearly suppressed. My attainments in the Tao of space aren't enough. Lin Feng knew this very well. Moreover, fourth brother Tsangya's One domain was more compatible with the Tao of earth, so his control over it was stronger. As soon as he made his move, he was already at a disadvantage. B2 in terms of strength, Lin Feng was indeed inferior to Tsangya. Everyone knew this, so they were not surprised. However, in the next instant everyone's eyes widened. Who? The wings of warmth unfurled, and black light enveloped the earth. Its might was so great that it was comparable to Brahma, and it suddenly overshadowed the aura of the domain of warmth. Chi. The entire space was in chaos. The flapping of the wings of warmth caused the space to become incomparably chaotic. In an instant, it broke through the restrictions of the one domain. Although it could not break through it, it was now on par with it. Oh, that's right. Spatial disorder. Sure, Dingshan and the other 9-star experts naturally understood at a glance. Spatial disorder was a very good law. Although it was only a mid-level law, it was extremely practical. Comprehending it alone was a bit difficult, but it was a different story when it came within superior treasure. Roar! The one domain behind Sangya became real. As he roared, his body, which was several hundred times larger than Lin Feng's, suddenly charged forward. As he charged forward, his body continuously shrank, but his power continued to condense. It was as if all his power had been refined to the extreme. Chi. Sharp claws tore through the air. Its attack carried the law of Earth. Its attack also carried the law of Earth. It was the embodiment of Earth. It was mighty, mighty, and unparalleled. Of course, Sangya could not summon one domain, and one domain could not live here. This was just a drop of one domain's lifeblood. Its power was completely dependent on its master, Sangya. One domain would be as powerful as Sangya's attainments in the law of Earth. If Sangya had a law body and was recognized by the law of Earth, one domain would truly become one domain, the embodiment of Earth. Chi. Lin Feng unsheathed his Eclipse Mystic Saber. The Eclipse Mystic Saber, with its third secret rune activated, showed its true power for the first time. At full power, it was close to an ordinary superior treasure. With Lin Feng's third secret rune of light, the saber showed its true power. Hua, hua, hua. Lin Feng's body was surrounded by dense light element. Like a natural magnet, he absorbed the light element endlessly and even gave birth to the light element. Extreme compatibility. It was not compatibility with the saber, but compatibility with the light element and light origin. Lin Feng was like the embodiment of light. The law of Earth was even stronger than one domain's embodiment of Earth. What? Law body? No way! How is this possible? Even Patriarch Dongwang and Sangya widened their eyes in shock. The group of 9-star great beings was completely shocked. Chapter 1975. Body of Laws. Only by fully comprehending a complete great Tao of laws would all 6 branch meridians be bestowed with the origin of laws. It was quite difficult. After all, the comprehension of different laws was different for each branch meridian. Therefore, among all the 9-star experts in the Origin Awakening continent, there were only a dozen or so who had a body of laws. Among the Milky Way's human clan, only Patriarch Dongwang and Deputy Patriarch Shi Dingshan had a body of laws. Even Deputy Patriarch Enigma did not have one. Sangya had been studying the Tao of the Earth Law for countless eras and was only one Tao away from success. Now, he was extremely eager for the quota of Tranquil Heart Lake. He wanted to have a body of laws before the void turbulence opened. At that time, his control of the Tao of the Earth would reach a new realm and level. The power of the 2 Earth-type outstanding true treasures, the one armor and the battle machete, could also be improved. His strength alone could increase by more than 10%. If he could master the outstanding true treasures, his combat strength would increase by at least 30% and at most 50%. But now he never expected that the body of laws that he had not been able to achieve after painstakingly cultivating would appear in the body of a newcomer who had just entered the 9-star level. How could he endure this? He was simply dumbfounded. Unbelievable. Even Patriarch Dongwang sighed. He knew that Lin Feng's talent was monstrous and his comprehension was astonishing, but he never thought that Lin Feng would be able to possess a body of laws in such a short period of time. This speed was already enough to defeat all the experts on the Origin Awakening list, including himself. A body of laws was among the 9-star experts, the symbol of an expert. Tears of Chaos. Lin Feng attacked with the second move of the myriad obscuring heavenly blade. although the strongest move of the myriad obscuring heavenly blade was the fusion of light and darkness. Whether it was driven by light or darkness alone, it was still very powerful. After all, it was a blade technique created by ancestor Wan Qian. It was extremely powerful. Moreover, Lin Feng's ultimate blade proficiency had reached 80%. The essence of the second move, Tears of Chaos, could be fully displayed. Boom! 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 Lin Feng's blade collided head-on with Zhong Wen's true body. Zhong Wen roared furiously, but he could not withstand the waves of suppression from Lin Feng's light origin. The strength of his law body also overwhelmed his way of the earth bit by bit. Most importantly, it was just a clone, an outstanding true treasure. No matter how strong they were still affected by Sangya's strength. Boom! Lin Feng swung his saber backhandedly again. The sky seemed to be weeping as three beams of light crisscrossed and intersected with each other. A tearing sound came from Zhong Wen's real body as he was heavily injured. He instantly retreated and landed behind Sangya. At this moment, the battle intent in Sangya's eyes grew deeper and deeper. From the beginning to the end, he did not move at all. This was because he believed that Lin Feng was not worthy of him drawing his blade. He was a mere newcomer. Even Gongwen's true body could easily defeat him. But he was wrong. "Seventh brother, your strength surprises me," Sangya suddenly said. His voice was less dignified and stern, but more serious and dignified. This was because he clearly knew that Lin Feng's ability to defeat Zhong Wen's true body meant that he was no weaker than Suan. No, he was stronger. This was because his sixth brother, Suan, could only fight Zhong Wen's true body to a draw. But Lin Feng had defeated Zhong Wen. "I didn't expect your strength to catch up to my fifth sister in such a short time." Sangya's eyes suddenly sharpened as his battle intent soared. A gigantic saber appeared in his hand. The saber was covered with terrifying veins that pierced the bones. It was the outstanding true treasure, the Zhan-E saber. Together with Zhong Wen, one attacked and one defended, creating the name Slayer King. "You're worthy of me using my saber." Sangya looked at Lin Feng and said slowly, "I created this saber move myself. It's called Boundless Heaven and Earth. There are 6 moves in total. If you can take 5 of them without losing, I'll admit defeat." Sangya's body was huge. Behind him, Zhong Wen materialized and condensed on Zhong Wen's body, becoming a part of him. The saber in his hand condensed a huge aura. Under the activation of the law of Earth, its power was shocking. The saber's almighty mastery was close to the limit. The Slayer King's reputation was not undeserved. "Get ready!" As Sangya roared, he was like a tyrannical and peerless beast standing on the vast earth. His hair stood on end, and his domineering aura soared into the sky. His saber-intent world was filled with wild ambition, just like his heart. Compared to Lin Feng's 1,000 obscuring heavenly saber, it was less mysterious and profound, but more direct and domineering. The first move, Boundless Wild. The earth was wild, and so was the heart. Sangya's Zhong Wen's saber displayed a power that was close to the saber's almighty mastery. Almost half of the 9-star experts were at the almighty mastery level. Sangya, who was strong in combat, was one of them. His saber technique had reached the 99% level that Dong Wang, the patriarch, had mentioned. He was only one step away from the almighty mastery level. Unfortunately, this one step was quite difficult to comprehend. It was much harder than going from 0 to 99%. Most of the 9-star experts were stuck at the 1% level. Even so, Sangya's saber technique level was still many times stronger than Lin Feng's. 3 moves. He will lose in 3 moves. Although Sangya thought highly of Lin Feng, he still did not think that Lin Feng was a match for him. He was 100% confident that he could defeat Lin Feng in 3 moves. The power of the first move had already surpassed Zhong Wen's true body. With the help of the outstanding Zhong Wen's armor, Sangya was invincible. He was the #1 war god of the Milky Way's human tribe. Boom! The Zone Wind's saber condensed the law of Earth. It shrouded the entire arena. His saber technique level was very high, but he could not use even half of his will. It was as if he was restricted. How can this be? Song Ye's eyes widened in disbelief. His saber technique level was far higher than Lin Feng's, but he felt powerless at the moment. The sabers clashed, and the origin of light and the origin of Earth collided fiercely. The shattered elemental energy scattered everywhere. Fortunately, there was the protection of the 18 gold amplification array. Otherwise, he would be in big trouble. I don't believe it. Song Ye gritted his teeth, and his fighting spirit soared. The second move, Boundless Earth. It was steady and heavy, showing the power of the Earth. However, it was still blocked by Lin Feng. The shocking rebound force forced Song Ye to retreat dozens of steps before he could stabilize himself. Boundless Mountain. Song Ye's eyes were red. The overbearing power increased his combat power again. He tried to suppress Lin Feng with a stronger saber will, but he was still trapped in Lin Feng's saber will. He could not use even half of his will. This was impossible. Song Ye turned pale with fright, never having imagined that things would turn out like this. The saber technique he was most proud of, his strongest move, could not be used at all. It was as if his hands and feet were tied by iron chains. Lin Feng was clearly so weak, and his saber technique level was far inferior to his. However, every time he used his saber technique, it was as if he had the help of the gods. Chapter 1976. Song Ye was not the only one who was surprised. Even the Patriarch Dong Huang, the Deputy Patriarch Shi Dingshan, and Mystery were shocked. The other clansmen only saw the saber and saber colliding, the battle intent clashing, and the elemental origin laws crazily attacking each other. However, they saw it clearly. A bystander would have a clearer view of the situation than Song Ye himself. What an exquisite saber move! Mystery's beautiful eyes flickered and she sighed softly. Completely suppressed. Shi Dingshan sighed. Fourth brother's saber technique realm is far superior to Lin Feng's. He should have won easily, but he also uses a saber, and his saber moves are connected. Fighting at the same level is like fighting at close range. His saber moves are suppressed, and the power of his saber moves cannot be exerted. One has a strong saber technique realm, and the other is the best. Mystery said softly. There is such a wonderful saber move in the world, and I can't understand it at all. Dong Huang stared intently at the fighting ring, and his heart was in turmoil. With his vision and strength, it was not difficult for him to comprehend the artistic conception of sword movements, saber movements, and fist movements, although he could not fully comprehend them. But at this time, Lin Feng's saber moves were like a needle that wanted to pierce through, but found that it went in seamlessly. Exquisite beyond compare. But the realm can't be reversed, but the essence can. Dong Huang was very clear that Lin Feng had almost reached his limit, but Song Ye had not. He still had 3 moves of the saber move vast earth that he created. The power of the last 3 moves and the first 3 moves were very different. The essence was also very different. Seventh brother's essence can be suppressed, but not below 50%. Dong Huang's eyes were bright, and he sighed softly in his heart. He knew clearly how powerful the last 3 moves of Song Ye's vast earth were. Unfortunately, Lin Feng relied on this exquisite saber move. If he had the same saber technique realm as Song Ye, he would have won today's battle. It was not difficult to master all saber techniques from 80% to 99%, but it needed time. Seventh brother, I still underestimated you. Song Ye looked straight at Lin Feng, and he had already calmed down and no longer looked down on him. Your strength is much stronger than I thought. I'm afraid that even fifth sister is no match for you. The crowd burst into an uproar. Song Ye did not bother to lower his voice. He disdained to do so. 1 was 1, 2 was 2. He was very satisfied with Lin Feng's strength. The strong valued the strong. Songya now viewed Lin Feng in a new light. Originally, he had thought that Lin Feng was overflowing with talent and had risen to an extremely high position all of a sudden. That was why he had looked down on him. But now that was not the case. Lin Feng was the real deal. Lin Feng was worthy of being his opponent. At the side of the combat arena, Lu Ying gazed at Lin Feng with a complicated expression. She didn't need Songya to tell her, as she discerned that this seventh brother, who just advanced into the 9-star realm, possessed strength that wasn't inferior to her now. It was both gratification and inexplicable bitterness, but more than that, it was amazement. His talent left others in the dust. Beside her, Suan also had a bitter expression. How could he have imagined that the young fellow he'd just recruited in the ultimate Dragon Sky City would become stronger than him in the blink of an eye in just a few years? Although he was ranked 6th, he was ranked last in terms of strength. Sigh, comparisons are odious. Suan sighed in his heart as he stared at the combat arena. He really wanted to know how far Lin Feng could push his fourth brother Songya. At this point in the battle, Lin Feng had already lost honorably. Rumble, Songya's expression was solemn. His aura had reached its peak and the earth and rocks cracked. He hadn't even used his saber move, but the prelude was already extremely terrifying. The earth's pulse was chaotic, but it contained a unique mystery. The move was chaotic, but the heart wasn't. The fourth move of boundless heaven and earth, chaotic boundless. In terms of power, it could unleash 90% of the power of the ultimate saber proficiency realm. It was almost 10 times stronger than the third move, Boundless Mountain. There was a huge jump from 80% to 90%. This was the last 3 moves of Boundless Heaven and Earth. Ha! Songya's neck was red, and his meridians were bulging. The muscles on his back were bulging, and it was extremely terrifying. This move required an extremely strong explosive power. Suddenly, dang! A bell that shook one's soul resounded in the combat arena. A phantom of a giant golden bell appeared around the combat arena. The 18 clansmen controlling the 18 gold diffusing formation were all stunned. Even though Lin Feng wasn't attacking them, they were still stunned and their minds went blank. Elite True Treasure, Golden Bell. It was an extremely rare soul attack type true treasure. Back when Lin Feng was an 8-star, the Golden Bell could already unleash great power. Now, as a 9-star Lin Feng, he could unleash the power of the Golden Bell to the limit, or even beyond it. In Lin Feng's hands, the Golden Bell was no less than an excellent true treasure. It directly hit Songya. Buzz, Songya's soul wasn't his forte. In fact, it could even be said that he was weak. However, no matter what, he was still much stronger than an 8-star expert. This time, however, he was completely unprepared and was completely caught off guard by Lin Feng. Moreover, Lin Feng's soul was too strong. Even in the Origin Awakening list, he was a top-notch existence. It was impossible for him to kill Songya with his soul, but it was easy for him to affect him. Even if Songya was prepared, he couldn't avoid it. The surging saber energy and battle intent that he had just accumulated instantly leaked like a balloon, and Songya's entire body shook. His head buzzed, and before he could react, whoosh, whoosh, 2 black lights, one on the left and one on the right, suddenly appeared, one after another. They were blood-red like hungry tigers, and they directly attacked Songya. They were the excellent True Treasures Mo Xian Boat and the elite True Treasure Gu Wang Liang. The former's strength lay in the True Treasure itself, while the latter's strength lay in its perfect compatibility with Lin Feng and the Tao of Dark Demons. Their power was on par. With the support of barbaric blood, their power increased to the level of 9 stars, and they were as fast as lightning. Pung! Pung! When Kai displayed a shocking defense, and one roared to protect its master. However, Songya still groaned and spat out blood. He was continuously forced back, and his eyes were filled with shock. He had actually been injured. However, the intense pain made him wake up. Songya instantly felt as if he had been enlightened, and he broke free from the numbness and restraint of his soul. When Kai once again shone, displaying the power of an excellent true treasure. Although it had dimmed a little, it was still incomparably powerful. However, at this moment, a white light fell behind Songya like a meteor. It was the profound light shuttle. The profound light shuttle was bestowed with the divine light pattern and controlled by the body of law, and it had already reached the limit of its power. Not only was its speed faster than the Mo Xian boat and the Gu Wang Liang, it was also the first true treasure that Lin Feng had used and controlled. This was a true attack. Not good. Songya, who had experienced countless battles, instantly widened his eyes, and a chill ran down his spine. His intuition told him that the danger behind him was extremely terrifying, and he almost reflexively drew his saber. Boom! The profound light shuttle and the war machete collided head-on. One was an attack that had been prepared for a long time. The other was just a temporary burst of power. It was instantly clear who was stronger and who was weaker. Boom! Under the full power of the profound light shuttle, the war machete was completely destroyed, and it directly crashed into Songya's back, creating a shocking boom that was mixed with Songya's scream of pain and anger. This attack was too ruthless. Chapter 1977. Everyone was stunned. Not only were they stunned, but even the 9-star experts, including Dong Wang, felt their hearts tighten. It was impossible to guard against. Lin Feng's attacks were like a barrage of cannons. Not to mention Songya, even they would find it hard to resist. Endless attacks, close-range attacks, long-range attacks, space and soul attacks, were omnipotent. What was even more terrifying was that the attacks were condensed into a single line. Songya was directly injured. Rather than saying that he was careless, it was more accurate to say that Lin Feng's attacks were too exquisite. Songya was not the only one who underestimated Lin Feng. Shi Dingshan, Enigma, and the other 9-star experts also underestimated Lin Feng. His true strength was far greater than this. 30%? Now, it's 50%. After a long silence, Lin Feng finally burst out. From the beginning, he had been dormant, pretending to be weak, in order to lower Songya's guard and wait for an opportunity to counterattack. Unfortunately, Fourth Brother's physical defense is too strong, and my Mahua boat's attack is not at its peak. Lin Feng knew very well that if it were Fifth Sister or Sixth Brother, his attack would be enough to defeat them. But it was not enough to defeat Fourth Brother. Whether it was the skeleton demon or the profound light shuttle, they were elite true treasures. Although their power was not inferior to the Mahua boat, their upper limit was far from the Mahua boat. The Mahua boat, at its peak, could defeat Fourth Brother, but the skeleton demon and the profound light shuttle could not. Injuring Fourth Brother was already their limit. Whoosh! Lin Feng instantly closed in. His speed was so fast that it had the essence of the Tao of Light. Among the 9-star experts, his speed was the top. If his Tao of dark matter could also reach perfection, his movement would not only be faster, but also more ghostly. The body of law condensed the amazing origin of light, and Lin Feng's divine mark of light completely lit up. The law of light condensed into one, forming a resonance. Under the body of law, it directly merged perfectly. Lin Feng's eclipse mystic knife had already broken through space and arrived. Tears of Chaos. Although it was the second move, it was faster and more urgent. Taking advantage of the enemy's weakness, the powerful knife intent seemed to make the surrounding space cry. The knife technique was like a rainbow. Ah! As he roared, Songya's eyes turned blood-red. Although he was injured, that didn't mean that he didn't have the strength to fight back. His pride wouldn't allow him to be defeated by Lin Feng like this. The webbing between his thumb and index finger exploded as Songya clashed head-on with Lin Feng. However, the ferocious Lin Feng, whose battle prowess was astonishing, had already suppressed Songya. Boom! 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 Songya felt as if his heart was bleeding. Lin Feng's blade was becoming more and more tyrannical. Every strike forced him to retreat. If it weren't for the one armor protecting him, he would have been defeated a long time ago. Pung! Their attacks collided and they pulled apart the distance between them. Songya's blood-red eyes were overflowing with battle intent. The battle axe blade in his hand flashed with saber light, instantly forming a chaotic and boundless aura. But at this moment a saber light abruptly appeared in front of him, directly shattering the space around him. The saber light frenziedly tore apart the space around him. The chaotic boundless domain was destroyed as soon as it was formed. Songya hurriedly tried to defend himself, his eyes filled with shock. Spatial disorder. Kill him. Impossible. 2 types of spatial laws, especially the spatial strangulation, were of an extremely high level. Using them at the same time required the user's strength to be extremely high. If it was just spatial disorder, it wouldn't be much of a threat to Songya. But with the addition of spatial strangulation, it was a completely different story. The shattered space was strangling Songya, who was in the center. His saber didn't have time to stop and gather. At this moment, Lin Feng's saber was as heavy as Mount Tai, suppressing him once again. Mandarin Duck Tai. 10,000 obscuring heavenly blade, 3rd move. This was also Lin Feng's strongest move at the moment. It was a move that could unleash its maximum power. Although Lin Feng had touched upon the 4th move, Boundless Weight, its power was still inferior to Mandarin Duck Tai. This move was half as fast as Tears of Chaos, but once it was unleashed, its power was unparalleled. Boom! Songya, who was trapped by spatial strangulation, had just broken free when Lin Feng's powerful suppression trapped him again. He clenched his teeth and roared. Songya was finally able to use chaotic boundless domain, but its power had been greatly reduced. This included his fighting spirit, which had declined over and over again. Pung! In the void, a resplendent radiance blasted Songya down. Lin Feng was brimming with divine light runes. The strength of his body of laws made his saber move even more indestructible. Ancestor Wan Gan had created the myriad obscuring heavenly saber with such a foundation. In Ancestor Wan Gan's opinion, his descendant had his powerful bloodline. Shouldn't a body of laws be at the very least? I won't lose. Songya was hysterical. He was clenching his teeth so hard that they were about to shatter. At this point in the battle, he was completely enraged. He was like an enraged ferocious beast. The power of his saber had reached its peak. Being injured wouldn't make Songya give up. It would only make him more ferocious. But this time, his opponent wasn't ordinary. The black warm wings moved again. There were a total of 3 pairs, leaving behind afterimages. It was the advanced ability, Warm Wing Slash. There were a total of 3 layers of Warm Wing Slash. Lin Feng could only use 1 layer now, but it was enough. Warm Wing Slash and saber techniques had a lot in common. At the same time, Warm Wing Slash was the derivation and foundation of the spatial strangulation law. Learning Warm Wing Slash also meant comprehending spatial strangulation. This was the requirement of the advanced ability of the outstanding Brahma treasure, Brahma's Wrath. They were connected. And this was where Lin Feng's confidence came from. Now, not only could he use the advanced ability of Warm Wings, but he could also use the advanced ability of Brahma. Not only did he have more combat methods, but his combat power was also stronger. It's time to end this. Lin Feng raised his hand. The outstanding Brahma treasure's power was already exploding. Rumble! Compared to the agility of Warm Wing Slash, Brahma's Wrath was more explosive, but it didn't have enough stamina. Moreover, the attack was slow and could be easily dodged. But together with Warm Wings, it was a perfect combination. Spatial disorder. Warm Wing Slash. Then, boom! Brahma's Wrath was like a bomb exploding, directly exploding in the middle of the strangulation. Songya's eyes widened in shock. The warm armor had lost its luster. As an outstanding defensive treasure, it wouldn't be easily destroyed. But at this time, its defensive power was less than 10%. Boundless firmament. Sangya forced out the last of his strength and attacked. He didn't want to lose. However, he was greatly restricted. He had expended too much of his strength due to the wings of warmth and Brahma. Facing Lin Feng, who was descending from the sky, and the Eclipse's secret sieve blade, which was as powerful as 1,000 kilograms, he was already powerless to block it. Thousand obscuring heavenly saber, Mandarin duck tie. Rumble. An earth-shattering explosion resounded. The entire 18 gold-diffusing great array trembled. The faces of the 18 experts in charge of maintaining it were pale. The power was too strong. Pairs of eyes stared at the tranquil heart arena in shock. Spatial turbulence was everywhere, and the elements were chaotic. A figure stood upright with a saber in hand. Another figure had already fallen on the arena, unable to fight anymore. It was Sangya. Lin Feng wins. Patriarch Donghuang's voice resounded. Chapter 1978. He won? Lin Feng actually won? When the clansmen heard the Patriarch's final announcement, they could not believe that it was true. However, the scenes on the battle arena would not lie. Sangya was covered in blood, lying on the battle arena, his eyes empty and lifeless. Lin Feng stood upright. Apart from his slightly pale face, there was nothing unusual about his expression. The winner was Lin Feng. A newcomer who had just advanced to the 9-star level had defeated the 39th ranked on the Origin Awakening list, the number 1 fighting force of the Milky Way's human clan, the brave and undefeated Sangya King. Unbelievable. Oh my God, is this real? Am I seeing things? Lord Lin Feng really won. That was Sangya King. Sangya King, who is ranked 39th on the Origin Awakening list and has never been defeated, actually lost to Lord Lin Feng. I must be dreaming. This is too scary. Did you see that just now? How did Lord Lin Feng win? I didn't see it clearly at all. My head was in a daze, and it was already over. There was an uproar around the battle arena. 9 out of 10 clansmen were confused, and had no idea what had happened. With their knowledge, they had no idea how Lin Feng won. In their opinion, this was simply unbelievable. However, the 9-star experts saw it clearly. The 2 deputy patriarchs, Shi Dingshan and Mystery, looked at each other. They could see the incomparable shock in each other's eyes. They knew that Lin Feng's potential was unlimited, but they did not expect his battle strength to be so tyrannical. That was Sangya. Even if it was them, it would not be easy to defeat Sangya. He actually won, Shi Dingshan muttered to himself. He won, Mystery said softly. Shi Dingshan let out a long sigh. 7th brother's battle strength is too amazing. In terms of strength, 4th brother is still stronger, but... Mystery shook her head. She and Shi Dingshan had seen clearly that Lin Feng had defeated Sangya. Although he had relied on strength, tactics had taken up a large part of his victory. Or rather, it was battle strength. With the same level of strength, if one of them could unleash 120% while the other could only unleash 90%, the difference would be huge. From the beginning to the end, 4th brother was unable to truly perform the last 3 moves of the boundless heaven and earth. Su sighed inwardly, otherwise the outcome might have been different. The Patriarch has already warned 4th brother that his control over the battlefield is too weak. Just relying on the Codex domain is not enough. Shi Dingshan said, "It will be very troublesome if you encounter an opponent with a strong mastery of the law of space or an opponent with an outstanding domain-type true treasure." Riddle said, 4th brother is very stubborn. He will only be loyal to his own path. Even if he fails this time, he will not change anything. Suan shrugged. Can't help it. This is 4th brother. Luing didn't make a sound for a long time, nor did she make any comment. She just kept staring at the combat ring with her beautiful eyes, and only after a long time did she heave a long sigh of relief, and shake her head with a bitter smile. I never expected that sixth brother wasn't able to catch up to me, but seventh brother actually caught up to me. Hearing this, Su-en's old face instantly turned red. He wanted to refute, but he could only pout. Among the 9-star experts, he was indeed the weakest. The battle was over. Lin Feng's expression was very calm. He clearly knew that he had won this battle by luck. The next time he faced fourth brother Sangya, it would be difficult to win under the circumstances where he was prepared. However, the next time they faced each other, my strength will be much stronger than it is now. After this battle, Lin Feng was even clearer about the path he had to walk in the future. Perhaps the surrounding clansmen were all amazed and doubtful, unable to believe it. However, he was very clear that this was only a small part of his strength. When he was at the 8-star level, he was already outstanding, able to match 9-star experts. After becoming a 9-star expert, it was normal for his strength to increase greatly. Right now, his strongest strength was the inheritance of ancestor Wan Qian's bloodline, the light and darkness bloodline, supplemented by the Wan Qian heavenly blade, and the Wan Qian Dao. As long as he had enough time, he would soon be able to reach a higher level than his current strength. My current true strength is probably between 40 and 45 on the Origin Awakening list. Although he had defeated fourth brother Sangya, Lin Feng was very clear in his heart. The current him was actually still a little weaker than Sangya. However, it was not much. However, he was indeed already stronger than fifth sister and sixth brother. This was something Lin Feng was very sure of. He glanced at fourth brother Sangya, who was lying on the arena. His eyes were empty and lifeless, as if he was still unable to accept the outcome of his defeat. Sangya still had strength left, but that was because he had held back at the end. Otherwise, even if he did not die, he would be severely injured. A mere outstanding true treasure battle armor could not protect him completely. Speaking of which, actually, I should go and prepare a set of battle armor. Lin Feng thought to himself. Although the Mo Shui boat had defensive abilities, it was not a true battle armor. The same was true for the Warm Wings. They both had defensive abilities, but they were not battle armor. It was still necessary to have a purely defensive battle armor. In today's battle with fourth brother Sangya, he had relied on his physical body to forcefully resist most of the time. If he had battle armor, the damage would be much less. He would not be able to gain the upper hand every time. Much of the Black Dragon Demon armor had been damaged. Even if it was repaired, it would only be an elite true treasure battle armor. Compared to an outstanding true treasure battle armor, the gap was huge. Fourth brother Sangya's warm armor was very good. It had summoning, domain, support, and extremely strong defense. Even after being attacked repeatedly, the warm armor had not been damaged at all. This was a true top-level battle armor. Soon, he would enter the void turbulence. It did not matter if his attack was weaker, but the stronger his defense, the better. That way, his chances of survival would be higher. Survive first, and then talk about opportunities. I will go to Tranquil Heart Lake first, clan leader. Lin Feng bowed to clan leader Dongguang. Then, he bid farewell to brother Shi and sister Mystery and left. From the beginning to the end, he did not say a word or exchange any pleasantries with fourth brother Sangya, because there was no need. For a true expert, the opponent's sympathy and pleasantries were humiliating. He knew very well that fourth brother Sangya was a warrior with great self-esteem. Saying some pleasantries would humiliate him. There was no need to say more, and there was no need to worry that fourth brother Sangya could not accept defeat. Sangya was already well-tempered steel. Failure was not a bad thing for him. On the contrary, it could make him stronger. Of course, it was the same for him. Next time, I will defeat you again, fourth brother. The strong appreciated the strong. Lin Feng had no malice or resentment toward fourth brother Sangya. From the beginning to the end, Sangya had been loyal to him. In essence, fourth brother was very similar to him. Whoosh! Lin Feng's departure caused an uproar. At this time, Lin Feng could no longer keep a low profile because he had just defeated Lord Songye, the clan's most powerful expert. And Lin Feng was just a newcomer who had just broken through not long ago. This was going to be a story that would spread far and wide. A new star is rising. Clan leader Dong Wang put his hands behind his back and smiled. He was very satisfied. Lin Feng was strong, and the Milky Way human tribe would be stronger.